How's it going?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Oh man, I'm up. It's what 7:30 a.m. over here.
Oh, I was gonna say I was thinking it was a little way earlier. You're in
Yeah.
Ontario, are you?
Yes, that's right.
Ah, tu parles français, mon ami?
Oui, je le parle un peu.
Je me parle un petit peu.
Mm,
Je me parle un
yeah, p- Poco.
un poco. Yeah,
So yeah, man. How you been?
yeah, good. What's been happening? Not a lot. Just chasing down some references and touching base
Mm-hmm.
with some old contacts. We're going on a holiday soon, so went up,
Nice.
dropped our dog off with a friend, and had a whole bunch of other jobs to do today. But I caught up with him, and he's living at this house that's right on the beach and facing west. We're on the east coast, so it's a little, and it's just a beautiful little spot. And apparently, he's pretty sick. We uh we adopted his rescue dog. He rescued a dog, and sort of when his family split up, we adopted it, and um we give it back to him at times when we're going away. But because he's such a beautiful dog, I won't give it back to him. So she sometimes goes and stays over there when we go on holidays. So it's just catching up with him today. Had a few beers and didn't get any of my jobs done. So yeah, but it was a good day today. But not much achieved, but uh, did some nice things. Lived a nice life today. Hung out with my daughter this.
Uh,
Hung out with my
Take some time
daughter.
to enjoy your life today. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I've been doing this thing where we're trying to allow our daughter to get taste more foods, and she's sort of locked down on these types of foods at the moment. She just doesn't want to try anything else. So I take her to a cafe in the morning and get her to sort of she gets to pick whatever she wants and whether or not she tries it and things like that. And we just have some fun and talk about what I'm eating, talk about what she's eating, and yeah, it was nice. Yeah, she's coming along as a good little kid, beautiful little child.
That's wicked. I was I know we were talking about the voice acting yesterday, and we never had a chance to for me to tell you about it directly.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it kind of is being born out of what we're doing right now. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, this isn't voice acting, but I've received voice training. So I can't separate the voice training from.
Oh, I've lost you. You
Oh,
there?
sorry.
Hello. You started
Check,
to
check.
rug. You started to rug, and then
Oh,
yep, you're there.
okay, one sec. Let me just
So,
move over to the other room. One sec. Sorry.
oh, good man.
You guys talking about voice acting?
Sí, señor.
Have
Yeah,
you
thank you
have
for
you
the.
tried it? Have you studied it or played it?
Yeah, yeah. I can stay here. You can listen in, or I can go in the other room from distracting you.
I've been a voice actor.
You
It's an
have?
interesting. Yeah,
No way.
I've been a voice actor. You see,
That's
There
it's
you
more
go.
incredible.
difficult. It's more difficult with real people than with characters, like animated characters. It's very easy.
Hmm.
It's so easy with animated characters, but with real people, you just gotta copy their postures. So, well,
Is,
well,
is that what you think it is?
I've been I study voice acting, and then I worked like a year in voice acting. So then,
Mm. Um,
speaking in Spanish.
today, Mhm, mhm. Um, so the reason that uh, Hurls and I are chatting today is because we're about to kick
You
off
knew
a
you need
voice.
a new agent. I'm just kidding with
There
you
are
guys.
no, there are agents available. That's
Okay,
why we're talking.
nice.
So- yeah. So um, I I'm in Canada. Where are you?
I am in Chile.
Whoa, that's incredible.
It is?
Uh, yeah,
Is it?
I'm. Yeah, my I'm from Guyana, so technically we're from the same continent.
Well, geology is similar in the you're from the mountains to the Pacific or to the mountains to the the Atlantic. Because if you're from the mountains to the Pacific, it may be very similar, the geology and the structure of the land in all
We're
America,
beside
I believe.
we're beside Venezuela and Colombia. So so yeah, my parents are from Guyana. So when you said Chile, I was like, wow, technically we came from the same continent.
You're from
So
Guyana.
yeah, La Guyane.
Wow, man. And what
Yeah,
language do you speak there?
we
Like
speak
native
broken English.
languages.
We speak broken English in Guyana.
But has it been influenced by native languages or
It's a bit,
African American languages like
no,
Boricua or
it's
Yoruba?
well,
No,
it
Boricua
was
is
like a
from. I'm sorry, Boricua is from the Native
yeah.
Americans from the center zone. I'm sorry, I
Hmm.
messed it up, but did
No, it's
I? I
okay.
mean, I mean Yoruba, like African
Yes,
American, African
yes,
languages.
Yoruba. Yep, yep. The Yoruba tribe is from Nigeria. Um, they in Guyana we speak like a broken English sometimes. Like, hey Pascal, what wrong with you? You from Chile? Yeah, Chilean by or what?
Wow, it's like
Right? So
some kind of Creole.
yeah, exactly. It's a Creole, right?
Nice. Well, here
So
in my country, there's a lot of Haitians. Do you know that?
mm, no,
Yeah. Some percentage of the population are Haitians. So
wow,
you see, like it's some kind of new in Chile because African slaves have been brought here, but it is the myth of the history that they died from cold, from
right,
low temperatures. But
wow,
then, since the 2000 years, the 21st century, something happened that Haitians have been going here, and there's a lot of Haitians, and they're very educated. They speak like a lot of languages. Those
hmm.
guys are like geniuses. They
So
speak like five or five languages.
mm, so Pascal, today we were talking to Hurls, and I think it's something you might be interested. I don't know, but the reason that I was talking to Hurls today is because we're kicking off a voice acting masterclass led by
Wow,
someone who,
man.
yeah. So
Well,
we have
I'm a voice
someone.
actor myself, but I cannot make. I have to make a little effort to lose my accent.
No,
Maybe
no,
I can speak like an accent from
no.
another
We
part
don't.
of the world, but then you
Here's the thing.
say,
Here's the thing. we don't want you to lose your accent. Your accent is actually more valued now than ever before. Right? Like if you look on TV now, the types of voices that they're using are very diverse, and they're diverse for a reason. And so that's when I spoke to, when I was speaking to you and I was speaking to Hurls, when I heard how he sounded, I was like, wow. And so, long story short, we're kicking off a voice acting masterclass led by Christian Potenza, who
Are
played
you a voice
Christian.
actor yourself?
No, I'm a headhunter.
Okay, like
Can I ask you a question?
Herbie Hancock. Herbie
Can,
Hancock.
can,
Go ahead, Hurls.
can I ask you a question?
Watermelon headhunters.
Can I ask you a question?
Do you have those little heads in your, like, where do you keep your little heads?
In my
You.
phone.
I'm just going to mute everyone for a sec.
Yeah, not a problem.
If you can you just finish his sentence and just put your hand up. We might get people to put their hand up so we can allow people to, because we're all excited about this sort of stuff, very passionate about this sort of stuff and our voices and learning more about the tones and the phonetics and playing with our voices. Can really excited to have you in the space and hear more about you. But there's a bit of an agenda in this space at the moment. And so are you guys cool if we can, are you okay with that if we just sort of use our hands and use the resources that are available within this space and just put your hand up and we'll try and keep the conversation flowing? Maybe something we can do is like if we can keep an eye on the icons when we're talking, if someone puts their hands up, we can sort of just moderate it and go from there. How's that sound? Everyone's unmuted. Cool. Okay. Let's see how we go. Hi, Casey. How are we? Hi, everyone.
I'd like to sing a song. What's up? How you guys doing? Good morning.
Yeah, good. So yeah, since you've just brought that up, Casey, I just love it when you do that because you inspired me to just do the Syndicate voice intro. I'm just putting a proposal out there. So yeah, I might just kick it off. I've been playing around with phonetics and vibrations in songs. It's a bit of a song that's an Australian background song, so I'm sort of playing around with how the didgeridoo sounds and sort of trying to mimic that in a sense and bring it right down and tone it right down. So yeah, KC.
Wait, you're doing didgeridoo vocals?
Yeah, I can do didgeridoo vocals, but it's not. I mean, it's a work in progress, right? It's not exactly a didgeridoo, but the noises that you make when you do play didgeridoo, like I can play it, but not professionally. So, but yeah, but it is late in the evening, and I've had a few drinks. I caught up with an old friend today, so we'll see how I go. I've got nothing around to wet the vocals, but that's what we're here for. Make mistakes and move along. So I'll intro the room, and we've got an agenda. So he's got to get some things out and have a chat to me about what he's doing. So we'll kick it off. All right. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share a dream and sing with one voice. Oh, I am, you are, we are the Syndicate.
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
You know, I actually thought that was Hurls for at first. I'm like, wow, he really went off the rails with that one.
Wow, that's range. So I'll run it back. I'll make this every time I say this, it gets shorter. That's what she said. Sorry. Um, so Trav and I want to connect today, but because we're on opposite sides of the planet, talking to each other over the phone would have cost us $1 million. So we decided to talk over Twitter Spaces instead. It's a lot easier than downloading WhatsApp. So the reason that I wanted to connect with him today is because, we met recently, and I think we realized we have the same interest. Now, in doing anything, sales is required, and that sounds terrible, but it's true. Sales is required, and a lot of people hate doing it. And a lot of people are afraid of it. But at the end of the day, if you want anything in your life to move forward, you're going to have to pitch someone, right? You're going to have to propose to a husband or a wife, or, ask someone to get you something from the top shelf, or, right?
Exactly. That's
A
right.
lot of,
Yep.
a lot of things are a pitch. And what I realized over the last 120 days is that people do not care about content unless they've connected with the individual first. People don't care about startups. They care about the who founded it and who's on the team. And I saw that because in these spaces, people would connect with other people and get jobs, get out of debt, avoid bankruptcy, apply for their first home, a bunch of stuff. And I was like, oh, wow. So, these people are making sales not because they're creating videos. In fact, the videos I created for people, they weren't all that successful, to be honest with you. It was only when I realized that people didn't care about what the founder was selling. They cared about human beings and human stories and human pains and pleasures, right? And so
Yeah.
once we started, that little scissors in the bottom right-hand corner? So there was a time we were talking with Zach, and Zach has a background with the military, right? And I started clipping a bunch of cool things that he was saying, things that I thought were useful to me and other people, and sometimes his
Yeah.
interaction with other people.
Great.
And a week later, he says, "Man, I got 100 new followers." Right? And
Yes.
people are starting to sign up. I'm like, so you're telling me that people who never talked to you but heard you talk to other people are now DMing you asking to sign up for Win the War? Well, that's interesting. I thought they had to connect with you like I'm talking to you, Casey, and Can I Can right now, right? But apparently it's enough to hear someone talk to someone, maybe that they identify with the same problem and solution. So Mohit Movies, and this is where I'll end. Mohit Rajans, who's on TV like at least every week in Toronto talking about tech, he said that content wasn't king, and he said this 2 years ago. Content is not king, connection is. And from what I can tell, people want to connect emotionally with the person first before buying. Now, that might not extend to things like gasoline, right? But in a world where your product, service, and brand are the same as everyone else's, it's only your sales process that differentiates you. That's the challenger sales model. So long story short, that is all of the reasons that I think the voice acting class can be powerful. I did it 2 years ago, and it's been very, very good to me, right? And I've seen other people go from zero to potentially playing people on NBC. Didn't happen overnight, but now that I've seen it happen through this process, I'm like, giddy up. And who better to teach it than someone who's been a voice actor for animated cartoons for almost 20 years now?
Yes. Wow. Tell me more. Let's make that connection.
Where should I start?
From the beginning.
Yeah. So the very beginning is kind of funny. I'm downtown Toronto, and I meet, and I'm working out at the gym, and I see a guy who's wearing a Che Guevara hat. And I'm downtown Toronto. You don't expect to see a Che Guevara hat, right? And so I talked to the guy, and it turns out he's the audio engineer for Canada's most prolific comedy talent agency. And we just started hanging out, and we would like just work out on a regular basis. We like to save music, we like reggae, all that kind of stuff. So 2 years later, he says, "Hey man, I'm going to be close to you. I'm going out to meet a friend." I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll meet you up." And his friend turns out to be this guy, Christian Potenza, who has a voice acting studio in Hamilton. And the thing is, I don't watch a lot of like modern cartoons, so I didn't know who he was. But then after the meeting, I come home and said, "Hey, Allie, I met this guy, Christian Potenza. He used to play like Chris McLean from this show." And she's like, "What the hell? How'd you meet that guy?" I'm like, "I don't know. He like lives 5 minutes away from our house. He has a studio." She's like, "What the shit?" And like she was so surprised. And then I took her to the studio, and she met the guy. And like I was kind of surprised at um how much Allie was a fangirl of the guy. Right? You ever see your wife get excited about another man? It's kind of weird. But she was really excited about the guy because he was this guy on this cartoon that was really popular. I didn't know about. It's like imagine meeting like a celebrity, but you didn't know they were a celebrity, and then your friend passes by and starts freaking out. You're like, "What the fuck is?"
Yeah,
What,
sometimes
like,
it's
who-
good. Sometimes I think there's when I meet celebrities and things like that, I think it's a good thing because they can sense that vibe, right?
Oh yeah,
When you
because everyone's begging for their money all day long for the past 30 years.
or attention, like the
Yeah.
starry eyed there, like wow, like I know this guy, or the feeling of recognition when one party has a feeling of recognition, like I know you in depth, and the other person's like this there's different ways they can play off to a celebrity, because sometimes they don't want that attention. They just like doing their job. They don't need the fan base
Mhm.
sort of in their face. So it might have been a good thing that you actually didn't know, because you would have been
Yeah,
essentially
probably.
genuine. Yeah. Yeah. Continue. Good story.
I see Ken Eye's hand up. I'll let him say something and then I can continue.
Yeah, but when you see like actors like Al Pacino in that movie like Perfume, the beautiful perfume, whatever the name of the movie is, do you understand me what I'm talking about? You saw that movie. He's a blind general in a court defending this little kid that is a poor kid in a rich school. And he's been accused of vandalizing a car of the director.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to look that up.
The perfume movie of Al Pacino. He's a blind general defending this little kid that is a poor kid in a rich school. And then some vandalizers have destroyed the car of the principal.
I know what movie you're talking about.
You
And
know that
he
movie?
and the kid takes him. He shows it gets him. Takes him for a drive. Right. He ends up driving a car even though he's blind.
Yeah.
That's with
Yeah.
Chris.
So
Chris
then you
something.
see, like you
No,
were talking
I think
about
we're talking about
speech.
Daredevil.
Scent of a woman. He's talking
You
about.
you
Scent of a
were
No,
woman. That's it.
Daredevil was
you
when
were
he was
talking
blind.
about the way the speeches and the voice
Was that
actors, right?
was
Yeah,
Right.
that
the
Al
Cannonball. Are
Pacino
you 300 years
or
old?
Matt?
You just referenced
Dear,
Scent of a
so
Woman.
yeah.
Let me
So
let me
nice
make a
catch,
point
Dr.
here.
Carey.
Let me make a point here. You were talking about voice acting, right?
Right.
So then, in that movie, Al Pacino has this little moment when he fights in this court with the director of the fucking school, and he made his little point, and the little dialogue that he delivers It's so fucking incredible the way he uses the speech to scream something. Like,
I love American screams.
when the fans and the shit goes on and the fans, that little speak that he made.
So your point is that with
Some
proper,
guys run and some guys stay. And
One sec,
here
can I?
and
Let's
Yep.
hear
here.
from Casey. One sec.
so his point is that with proper voice control, you can do things in a public setting that normally you couldn't do, I think.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When you're in control, but you're expressing an emotion and you're in that mindfulness state, like there's power in that. There's power in that.
Well, I mean, go ahead, Dr. Kerr.
It isn't really important. It's more of a joke, but we were just talking about a really old movie, and then John Barrymore came in the room, so I just had to say it out loud. That's all. Good morning.
So you continue on. Where were we? Where were we at? Thank you.
So long story short, 2 years ago, what happened? We had a pandemic. And I know a lot of musicians and comedians who make their money from
Yeah.
performing in front of people. So they had their entire livelihoods washed away. Like literally, imagine you make money by getting paid money to go on stage, and now all stages are banned for 3 years. What do? You just go bankrupt for 3 years? Or just like all your cash flow goes in the drain? That doesn't make sense.
If you're creative, you innovate, right?
Well, yeah. And so I found that the gap between what people do with each other and what people do online through these cameras we have on Zoom is essentially voice acting.
Yeah.
Because we're not together, we're just in front of a lens. So, what's the difference between being in front of a lot of lenses and the lens on your computer? There's no difference.
Nice point. You see, Brando, when they interview him, he said in that late night show in L.A. He said, and the interviewer asked him, "What? How do you act so well?" And he said, "You see, you act for surviving. What you do right now, I cannot do. You're interviewing people. You have this kind of things prepared, thinking about what's going to happen next." And then Brando said, the greatest actor, you see, Brando, he said, you just act every time of your day, you just act for surviving.
Yeah. Act for survival. Wow. Thank you for that. Now, Canacan, you spoke up. We talked about this before. We're just going to try and keep we've got an agenda here. And you made a good point. But I'd appreciate it and I'd ask if everyone put their hand up so we can continue the flow of the conversation and allow people to make their point. So that's strike one from you, Canacan. We're going to have fun with this. 3 strikes and you're down to listener. You'll get time out. And again, I'm glad you're here. I think you've got an important role to play within this conversation. So where were we?
So, I thought I was a good communicator because I'm a recruiter. Shouldn't I be a good communicator? Right? And I realized that when I started doing the course, I wasn't a very good communicator at all. For the most part, what I would do is I was so excited to either gain people's attention or have them listen to what I had to say or convince them of my point that I would just kind of vomit my ideas at people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is right. I would just, I would just start talk because I was so excited to connect, and maybe because I had like a lot of neediness, right? It was all of any good ideas that I had. It was like I didn't know. I understood where the ball was going, but I didn't know how to hit it, kind of thing. And it was a confidence thing. It was an inability to trust myself to speak slowly. I spoke fast because I thought people were going to cut me off. And when I understood like all of those mechanics as to why I was rushing myself through the voice acting, that really started changing the trajectory of what was happening for me, because I was able to be clearer and more effective on Twitter Spaces. And through Twitter Spaces, like a lot of opportunity has come out of it. So I didn't expect the voice acting class to have that effect, right? I was just introducing other people to the idea and managing the Zoom. I didn't really do the course. I was the one managing the Zoom for the 20 to 25 people. But in the end,
Yeah.
if you're watching the whole course, you're essentially doing the course in your head. You know, you're trying out the scripts. Jeans, who doesn't love jeans? They're like the superhero of pants. They can do anything. Got a big work thing? Jeans. Date night? Jeans, right? Like you would just hear all of these scripts. But yeah, my life has completely changed because of this. And now
Can I
that I
ask a
speak,
question?
yeah, go ahead. Oh,
What's
sorry.
the
Actually, Hurls.
greatest
One
voice
sec.
that you haven't
One
have
sec.
to be?
One sec.
Yep.
Hurls, is that strike two?
It is strike two, Kanaka. Show me that you know how to put up your hand, buddy. He did get you on a technical foul there, mate. Sorry, I did set a rule. And Dr. Harry, go ahead. There you go, Dr. Harry. There's an example for you, can. Hi, Dr. Carey. Got something to say? Go. Sorry, unmuting. Jeez, I'll strike myself for that one. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, well, I feel like I cut people off sometimes, so I apologize in advance, Michael. But I was going to ask you if you're a teacher because you're really patient, and that's great. That's all, girls.
Was that question for Sayu or for both of us?
No, that was for you. I wanted to know if you were a teacher because you're very patient, and you're like letting him know the rules, and it's nice.
I've done I've done a lot of mentoring in my life. Done a lot of coaching, things like that. Work with kids. You've picked up on that. One of my uncles is a high school teacher, and he said that I should have become a teacher, but it didn't pay enough, so I sort of went into other roles. But it looks like I might be heading down that pathway with my new career opportunity. So I'll tell you more about that if you're part of the syndicate. It's nice to meet you, and I have another username that I use. It's called of5prong. It should probably be in the space at the moment. But it's more around the lines of communicating and how we communicate on spaces. I'm very passionate in learning more about that and developing cultures within these types of spaces where we as a collective consciousness can get a flow happening. And so that's what I'm sort of attempting in this space. I know it's not my space, but I'm bringing that sort of energy into this space. And so I feel as a has invited me as a co-host. So I'm just for this particular space at the moment. I see things, I see the resources, and I look at them, and I'm like, okay, how can we use this to best communicate and get something tangible out of it? And one of those ways is using the hand like a baton, and we're all in a relay, and we're all sort of running, and we're really, desperate for this connecting, and then someone puts their hand up, and we can set it as like an economy of demand, and that hand goes up. And if there's a lot of hands up in that culture, then we can bring it, okay, as a co-host, I'm going to bring it down to 10 seconds. When a hand comes up, you've got 10 seconds to wind up what you're saying and then pass that baton on, because someone's connected with you when they put their hand up, and they want to carry that and flow that conversation on. It's about that relatability, that connection, what Sayu's actually talking about. So yeah, I'm just having a bit of a play around with that in this space at the moment while we're talking with Sayu. So you carry on, and put your hand up. You're on strike too, Can, and you're getting dropped down to listener. And I really want you to stay up here, man, because you've got some really good points. Go ahead, so let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
Let's start
absolutely.
with the eggs.
So we talked about a lot of things today, but at at the end of the day, uh, we have a lot of people that we talk to that are very powerful, and nobody knows it yet. And I believe
Yeah,
that nobody knows who these powerful people are because we haven't figured out how to communicate power to other people. And
so
we're
true.
so eager to communicate our power that we forget that we have to connect with them first. Because every time we encounter a stimulus, our brain is asking, am I going to eat it, fight it, or fuck it? And so when we try to attack people's prefrontal cortex with our ideas, right, with our technical left brain ideas, we don't
Mm,
realize that in order to access that thinking part of their brain, we have to make them comfortable so they don't feel threatened.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Michael, you
I think
better take that out. That's a voice dub for sure. Whatever you just said. The whole eating, fucking, and communicating your
yeah,
power. Make sure that you take that out. No, like,
yeah, that was really good. Really
yeah,
good.
like put it everywhere. That's what I'm saying.
We have Canacan in this space. Everyone, he's from South America. He's a voice actor. He popped into this space, and we're liking what he's putting down.
So, guys, when you are like going to double a voice, have you ever seen this incredible thing called Cheburashka from the Soviet Union, Ukraine, Kiev? This animation called Winnie the Pooh and it's
Oh,
Cheburashka.
Winnie the Pooh.
There's two different animations. But then you see Winnie the Pooh. You remember Winnie the Pooh? I cannot lose my accent because people hate me about my accent. But if I lose my accent, then my brain goes a little slow because I have to lose my accent and try to speak like someone from a different part of the world. You see.
Something's what tigers do best. Yeah, I know Winnie the
But
Pooh.
then
We all know.
then is this Winnie the Pooh, the original Winnie the Pooh was an Ukrainian animation, and it was like different. Like you know that English animation about a caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. Like it's a book that you flip the. It's like the same guy from the where the monster live, the island of the monsters, where the monsters are. What's the roll down? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the James and the Giant Peach or the Miss the Big.
You're thinking of where the wild things are.
Oh, my
The
bad.
wild thing. That's right. And then the director called. I'm trying to lose my accent. When the director called Spike Spike Jones, it made an incredible movie that when the principal character was the voice acting of James Gandolfini, and then the guy just died. And I was just watching The Sopranos because I never watched The Sopranos in the 90s or the 20,000. I'm watching The Sopranos now. And James Gandolfini is a fucking incredible actor, man. And why the guy just like died? And he made the voice of that beautiful movie from the director Spike Jones, Where the Wild Things Are. It's a, his, it has a great cinematography. I remember when I lived, when I was a child, you believe me or not, I live in England, and my mother told me the story of Royal Dahl, that great drawing. He made the story It was so like bedtime story.
So you,
Amazing. So I think you see where we're going with this. The At the end of the day, actually, Dr. Carey was there with Christian. At the end of the day, I believe that there are we have around us, we have founders, we have designers, we have engineers, we have salespeople, right? Educators, go down the path. And we know that if voice is going to be part of this interface moving forward, where we're not reading substacks, we're not reading blogs, this is the blog. To me, this is the new podcast. Why would you listen to a podcast when you can just be a part of a show with the tap
yeah,
of your finger? Like, podcasts seem boring to me now.
Yeah.
Like, I get the reason of
yeah.
why you would want to have a one-on-one,
Yeah.
but like, if you really want to come to a solution, then you can just tap on your phone and brainstorm and have a swarm, and then you go about your day, right? You
Yeah,
ever see someone have a question here and it gets answered in 2 seconds? Like,
I know.
hey, how do I wrestle the Earth's magnetic field to the ground? Oh, you have to go to this website. Oh, okay. Well, how do you spell that again? Is that .ca or .com? Oh, it's .com.
Mm.
Right?
And
And
away they go.
so, so
Yeah.
suffice to say, if voice is going to be the primary interface through which we interact, right? Then people are going to make fortunes just based on their voice. That's my hypothesis. And so if your
Mhm.
fortune is going to depend in part on your voice, let's make sure you understand how to use it. Because I believe that the people in our distributed syndicate actually are unicorns worth launching. Worth launching.
Yeah, I'm hearing you there. I can see your hand up. We've got Peter who hasn't spoke yet. Oh, Can's put his hand down, so we'll put Peter up. Hey, Peter, how are you, mate? How's Perth?
It is absolutely lovely here. The spring is really kicking into full gear. So the air has a certain type of magic about it that I just can't help but indulge in.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah, we had
one of those
day
things. I can't wait to get out in nature. Tomorrow I've got the day off. I'm going to try and help out. So you with something there? Well, help out, do what I can anyway. And then I might go for a bit of a bushwalk, to be honest. It's been a long time, so need to get out there.
Oh, yeah.
Need to break these habits that I'm in.
Are you going to do it barefoot?
Nah, I don't like. I don't rate the barefoot thing as much as like some people do. Don't get me wrong.
No, I do it.
I definitely have
never
done it before,
Yeah.
but it's just like I just put my shoes on and I'm not getting like rocks in my feet and things like that. I'm happier. But it's more about just getting out there. I think there's still that connection to earth simply by just getting out there, even just laying down on the ground for a while and watching the clouds. I mean, even today after work, I did that for a bit because I was waiting for my phone to charge. It was just so like in the hustle bustle of all of this, you gotta have those little moments here and there because they're just, especially at this time of year.
Yeah.
Like it's harder in winter because the rain and the cold weather makes it a bit uncomfortable. But right now it's like the perfect weather, and it's only going to last for like maybe a couple months, and then it's going to start heating up. It's going to start getting uncomfortable again.
Yeah, that's it.
But sorry to ramble on. The reason I jumped in to actually say something here is I've noticed that even just interacting with you guys here in this space in the syndicate, I'm getting more confident using my voice in real life. I mean, like I come from a place where I had a lot of anxiety before I entered adulthood. Like, I used to go through shopping centers and I'd like be holding my breath because, I'm sort of trying to just like maintain composure, I guess. That passed,
Right.
but like, spaces like this are actually great for building confidence and finding your own voice in a way. So I appreciate that as well. Just letting me come in here, talk shit, say whatever it is I have to say, even if sometimes it's irrelevant. And yeah, so
it's great practice, though.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to what you have to say, mate. Honestly, it's good. Like these spaces are a safe space, right? That's what I was looking to find. And coming into these safe spaces and sort of getting out into these collective consciousness and entangling yourself helps you to sort of better understand yourself and then better share your message when you get out into the community. So we can couple in with this and we can, jam around with it in a sense. It's like a kind of like a conscious jam where we're all jamming and riffing and doing things. And in a way, we're sort of rehearsing for the real world. We can go back out there and we can show the world a better form or a more rehearsed form of ourselves and play a better song.
Well, it's funny because what Zach said is Zach said that the purpose of creating a plan is not the plan because no plan survives first contact with the enemy, or no prototype survives first contact with the end user. So he
Yeah.
emphasized to
Wait a
me
minute.
one
You say
second.
that then
Oh
they
no!
take the plan.
Strike three, can. Oh, I'm really sorry, mate. I'm really sorry. Let's just drop you down to listener. Damn. I thought he was onto it. I thought he was with us. There we go. I hate doing that. Can, I hope you stay with us. I really want to hear what you have to say. So you were saying something, mate. Where were we?
That's a good question.
Can anyone help us?
No, I mean, I know where you were, and I'll go back, I think. But I do think we do need something crazy happened yesterday. We do need some kind of like social cues guide or something for Twitter Spaces because it's just
Well,
getting.
here's the thing. Hurls is an expert in what we call classroom management. People think that teaching is teaching. Teaching is not teaching. In order to teach, you must first manage the classroom. Because if everyone is talking at the same time as you can't tell them what the Pythagorean theorem is. Does that make sense? And so classroom management is, you know how everyone on Twitter Spaces thinks they can be a teacher because they have something to teach someone, right? Put them in front of 30 kids and watch them be like 99.9% of the population. If you ask them to teach a class, they won't, or at least they won't do it again. Because managing a classroom is one of the most difficult things on the planet. And because it requires a different style of emotional intelligence, here's one thing I noticed with our spaces. When we first started doing, it was called the Squarespace, Degenerate Conversations in a Broadcaster Voice. When we started that, there was a hump, the hump that we had to overcome. And that was sometimes you'd have hecklers in the room, right? Sometimes people would be mad at you for no reason. Sometimes, initial interactions were kind of like water and oil, right? No blame, right? But there was this thing where there would often be this occurrence where there'd be a discussion, but then someone would enter the discussion, and for whatever reason, no blame, right? It's both people interaction that's producing this, right? So who's to say who causes it? But there was kind of like a water and oil scenario where people just didn't figure out how to play in the sandbox that quickly. And so I found that by learning how to interact with these people like Hurls did, oh, that allowed everything to grow. He has a very special skill. If you were going to host a room, I would make sure you have Hurls there as your co-host.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. I'm still trying to find out what it is because I see the relatability and the connection. Like, for example, Canacan, there's something there. There is, I can see it. I can feel it in his voice. But it's just about getting a bit of relatability and I'm trying to figure him out. I'm trying to relate to him, and if he stays with us, I'm going to get there eventually. It might not be tonight, but you're right. Water and oil in our everyday life cannot coexist. It has to be. Well, I mean, it has to because of the density of it, right? Let's have a look into your analogy there. There's a density there, and water is denser than oil. Okay, but in space, in the vacuum of space, we lose gravity, we lose density. So in the space, there's something that happens. In the vacuum of space, it can actually blend, in a sense. We were talking about like that meteorite we are talking about the other day that under a certain temperature, things can start to blend. So yeah, just like you and Dan now have the opportunity, whereas in the real world you might have not connected. In these types of spaces, if you create the right culture, you can start to entangle with those other types of consciousness. Dr. Carey, welcome up.
Yeah, no, and I apologize for putting my hand. You don't want to. Nobody likes a student that raises their hand while the teacher's talking, like right in the middle of it. So I apologize, but I
I
do
love
have
it. I love it.
ADHD, so I'm like, I'm connecting with what he's saying. Please let me speak.
That's what it's about. We're in a relay right now. Like we're passionate about this. We're jogging along. We're all saying something, and you're coming up, and you're like, I've got on the baton. I can see you. I'm right behind you. Give it to me. I want it. I need it. So
Right.
when I see
And
the
I'm a
hand,
girl and I'm blonde, so you gotta let me talk. No, I'm just kidding. It's
yeah,
good for
exactly.
numbers. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
what were
what
you
was I
going
gonna
to
say?
say?
So,
Yeah.
so I know, and I was up last night because of Twitter Spaces. Anyway, But what I was gonna say is, I wonder if you guys have some advice. So, you know, what? So I'm getting some kind of cool, not amazing offers or anything, but I'm like hosting with some, people that don't know me or whatever, and they think of me as a serious person, which everyone knows I have a little seriousness, but I'm also funny too, because this is like my real friendly space, right? At the Syndicate. But I get these guys that like follow me into these like serious rooms, and then they almost troll me, where the host that doesn't know me is like, okay, you need to not be a dick to Dr. Kerry. What do you guys think about that? Like, so I'm really and because I was a teacher for 12 years in essentially like I don't know if you know what the sweat hogs are from Welcome Back Cotter, but I feel like do you guys know that? That's like a super throwback reference. Anyway,
Yeah,
the kids were a little rough.
I've witnessed that. And you've carried that baton, and then Casey's coming up behind you. So it's time to pass the baton on to Casey. Let's keep this relay rolling.
Yeah, Casey, let me know.
Yeah, I struggle with this myself, and I have been vigilant about not creating what I've been calling a burner account or a separate account, but I'm day by day seeing more and more value in that idea. Like, this is my
Yeah.
serious account, this is my friendly account. Like, I don't like that. I don't want to do
Mhm.
that, but there's certainly a calling for it.
Yeah. I've started to do it only and with off 5 prong. There's another thing you can do though, Casey, and I'm working on that. What if you created another account that sort of had those certain responsibilities, those types of things that you wanted to focus on, and you brought it into the space with you? So in those moments, it's sort of sitting there like a little thing on your
Oh, tricky,
shoulder.
tricky, tricky.
I like that.
Tricky Trav, that's what they call me. Tradie Trav, the technical tricks, tricky tradie Trav. But yeah, Dr. Carey, Casey, keep that relay rolling.
Yeah, no, it's just frustrating when it happens. I mean, people, which is amazing, people have been really good for the most part. I think maybe because I'm a little bit older and can handle it. I don't know how the younger girls, I don't know what happens to them. They're pretty strong though now. The women are much better, I think, now that are like in their 20s and early 30s. But yeah, it's just been a real pain in the ass. And I don't know how other people, I don't know. I almost kind of flipped out yesterday in a room that like had like 500 people. But he's like, how about telling me more about Voyager? I'm like, dude, this is like a mental health room that has nothing to do with crypto right now. Anyway, I'm kind of just venting, but it's I just want to, take care of this problem, and I think I might do the DGen account, KC, and Hurls's idea for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's something I'm playing around with. I've seen that happen in spaces. I'm part of some spaces that involve DAOs and communities where we're putting in proposals. So there's a professional sort of thing going on there where we're talking about lots of money. And there's been some things happening. I've also got Kaon. She had someone sort of stalking her in spaces. So yeah, look, that's an important thing. Like, how do we do that? So at the moment, I'm co-host. So because I'm on co-host, I have a shared responsibility to allow my consciousness, and I have the privilege of allowing my consciousness to sort of interact with this space because I have the mute button. And if people are doing that, or if you have a co-host and things like that, there's nothing wrong. You're safe in these spaces to allow your conscious to flow. So if someone's cutting in, and when they come in and they sort of disrupt that, and you can start to feel the consciousness breaking up, like a thought starts to break up. You can say, "Hey, we've got something going on here." And the co-host, hey, if you could sort of mute that person in a sense, so we can allow this to go in this direction, I'd really appreciate it. And it's up to them. If you are the co-host, then you can do it, just like Canacan. I'm thinking about letting him back into speaker very shortly. So when you're ready, Canacan, and you think you can sort of abide by the culture, let us know. Put in a request for speaker. So what do you think about that, Dr. Kerry? Does that sound like something that might sort of help? Or in my experience, that's what I've sort of done in spaces. So
Yeah, I mean, so I'm super lucky because I have met so many people who like already know me and that I host with, and they just like are like shutting it down because they know like I'd never do anything. Well, I mean, I'm not perfect, but Anyway, I just kind of meant the new people I'm hosting with, but I guess I just have to be prepared for that. Because now that I'm like so famous with like 1,800 followers and stuff, it's like so awesome. No,
Yeah.
but from a serious note, yeah, for sure. I'm bad. Sometimes I don't take action on things that I see are little, but like if you're really trying to build a brand, like you have to take control of those little things that really, really throw you off, because it was right at the beginning of the show. So I'm definitely, after I take my daughter away, I'm going to make a plan. I like this guy. He only lets you talk for like 10 seconds. You should come to those all male spaces where they just like, I don't know where they learn their social cues. Anyway, sorry.
I was raised by tough love, like proper, tough love. And I can dish it out. I can dish out the tough. I can be tough, but I can dish it out with love. So this is all important because it goes back to what Soyu was talking about, with how we use our voices and how we sort of, I guess, lead within these cultures. And Soyu's got his hand up.
So what I would say is that the power of doing these things together, like the power of us connecting together, allows us to not have to be everything all at the same time. So, for example, today, Curls is one of the best people, if not, I would say the best person I've seen manage a classroom on Twitter Spaces, right? That's not an easy thing to do, what he did today with his relationship with Can I Can, right? That is not easy to do. And oftentimes that when people are attacking you, it's one thing for you to defend yourself, but it's sometimes nice to have your friends defend you. So, right? Because, we don't have to necessarily fight all these battles. If somebody came up here and was making fun of KC, right? We'd have so much fun with that. You have no idea, because we all have KC's back. And so so I see what's happening with Dr. Carey. And the thing is, we joke about it
It's not all the
sometimes.
time. It's not all the
No,
time either.
no,
'Cause I was
but
a
I'm saying like
teacher. And, yeah.
we joke about it, but people are insane out here. Okay, and we have to make sure that, especially like the women we're around, some of these guys feel entitled to harass women. Do you realize that? They don't see any
Yeah.
problem with it. They
It's
don't see
actually
any
really
problem with
cool
it.
that we see it out in the open. Like it's actually really
We have to
awesome.
call it out, right?
Yeah.
Because I have people who like I started a space yesterday, and the guy came in, just
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And the thing is, if I'm arguing with him, it's me and him or me and her. But if someone can help take that weight off of me, right, and I do the same thing for them, then maybe we
Yeah.
don't all have to be experts in jujitsu. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that, are you talking about the comedian gentleman who was sort of trying his Australian accents and stuff like that, and talking
Yeah.
about how Elon Musk's
Right.
trying to, yeah.
Look,
Yeah, so he actually was he actually put a bit of a rift in the space, and I didn't realize because someone messaged me later about it, and yeah, he put a rift in a space and actually got someone in our space way off track. So yeah, and I think you know who I'm talking about, but and I don't want to mention the name, but um, so
Yeah, I
let's
can't
let's
stand Moreland. He's driving me crazy. No, I'm just kidding. I apologize. I feel like I'm cutting you off, but can I say one more thing?
yeah,
No.
but remember
I'm
to
being
put your hands
bad. Are
up
you gonna give
if
me
you
a
can.
strike? Are you gonna give me a strike? I think I'm doing it on purpose because I'm like secretly like one of those bad kids. Not that you're
Okay.
bad. Not that
Cool.
you're bad.
I'm
That
glad
guy.
you told me that. I'm glad you told me that. You've got 2 strikes for
I'm,
that.
I'm testing you, Harold. I'm a jerk.
Because you did come into it. You did come into it, but I was like at that sort of referee state. I'm going to allow this because you were sort of saying, you said something like it's not all the time. It's not all the time, and then you close yourself off. But yeah, I'll allow that, and I'm just giving you 2 strikes for your comment. So yeah, test me. You
I
can
have to look
test me
that
if
up
you like.
anyway.
Um, so, so yeah, so let's bring this back to you about the voice lessons. How can we sort of segue this back? So we've got this sort of thing where we've talked about some important things. We've talked about some important issues of how we use our voice. We've talked about the culture of spaces and how we can sort of mold our collective conscious with the power of being co-hosts without being like a cancel culture. And I did see that Catacan requested it, but I just wanted to let this conversation afloat a little bit more and wait for a bit of a break to bring him up. But unfortunately, he left, and that really does disappoint me. I'm sorry, and he'll pop up again, I'm sure. So you got any ideas on how we can bring this back to what we were talking about with the voice course?
so the voice course is going to be starting in maybe a couple weeks. We have a few people who had a Zoom meeting with Christian, who's going to be running the course, along with Stephanie Yelovich, who's a mezzo soprano and understands the biology of breath and how it relates to
Oh,
voice. So it's a 4 week
wow.
course, and selfishly, my interest is to show that after this course, people's companies explode because they've now discovered kind of this key that unlocks everything that they were trying to unlock with their voice. There is a cost associated with the course because it's Christian's time and Steph's time, not mine. So
Mm-hmm.
for the 4 weeks, it's $500 US, which is
Mm-hmm.
payable in 2 halves, 250 and 250, or whatever that translates to you. Timing is everything for stuff like this. So we have a number of people who have already signed up. We have about 2 to 4 slots maybe left at this point. And once we get those slots filled, we're going to kick off that first course because I'd rather do a small course now than waiting for a lot of people because I really want to show with this initial cohort what's possible. So, for example, I don't think you'll mind me mentioning this because we've talked about it. Dan, if you've ever met Dan, who's known as Flusy Speak, right? If you've ever seen him do startup stand-up comedy, you realize he's one of the best people on the planet that does that. And when I heard him the first time, because I'm actually actively managing comedians now in Toronto, I saw, wow, this guy is a walking album, right? This guy's a walking stand-up comedy album. But what we need to do is bring up the quality such that we can release it if Netflix calls, right? Or if, you know what I mean? XYZ Comedy Club calls or what have you. And so for him, I know what he wants to do is he wants to catalog all of the characters that he has inside of him. And then
Yes.
he's also creating a bunch of content. And because he's a great writer and he's already a great voice actor in my mind. You know, we just have to show him how to have a relationship with a microphone, right? Which is a discipline in and of itself. We've been talking to Peter because I'll end with this. Whenever we have a communication, there are four major aspects. There's the touch, the hearing, the reading, and then what we see. So there's the kinesthetic, which is the touch, the auditory, which is our speech and what we hear, the read-write, which is what we read, and then the visual, what we see. So when Dan speaks, Dan has the script that he's making up on the fly. He has his voice, and that voice he also does a sound effects, which is the kinesthetic. The visual is what Peter is an expert in. And so what I was talking to Peter about is, what if Dan or someone else created a beautiful script? How might we turn that script into a film? One of the most powerful examples of this, I'll put this to the top. And the guy was so generous. He actually showed what prompts he used to create this. And so I think we're in a very powerful position because of our shared complementary talents.
Yeah, great question, Peter.
Yeah, so I'm just touching on that a little bit. I've done a lot of stuff with visual work from a young age. I've just sort of took a big hiatus on it, I guess, through like the high school years. But I was playing with After Effects and stuff when I was like 13, 14, 15, doing a lot of like visual effects, like even CG stuff back then. I sort of just gave it up because it was like the biggest constraint that I had at the time was, well, time. And, you know, trying to run these things, and then you sit there setting up a project, and if you're trying to render something out in, like, it was Cinema 4D for me back then, but, you know, it was 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, Blender, whatever. You're trying to get quality visuals. I'm sorry, Hells, I'll get to you in just a moment. You know, as a kid, you're not going to want to sit there and let it run for like 3-4 days just to get a quality product. As an adult, you have the patience. So that's sort of where I've been at with it. And yeah, I mean, it's not just the AI art stuff. It's incorporating that with all the other stuff, which is what, sorry to drag it on, but the connection between all these different elements, like this is just where it sort of comes together for me, specifically like myself, but now I'm also seeing that interaction with the community around me, where I'm interacting with people that are involved in music or in other forms of entertainment. And this specific kind of like generative art seems to be connecting people rapidly in a way that I've not really witnessed in my lifetime yet, but I hope continues to be a thing because, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
back to you, Hells.
I hear what you're saying about that connection. Yeah, I'm sort of picking up on that sort of culture, that connection, and how that's working as well. So you the 4-week course, and I have to apologize too because my Soli, she came into the room, and we're traveling tomorrow, just filled me in a thing, so I missed a bit on what you said. But with regards to the course, the 4-week course goes for 4 weeks. We're talking about every night, or what time sort of stamp are we working on?
Right. So imagine we have a class once every week with homework in between.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
you look
And
right.
right. And essentially what
We'll
you're
have to find
learning
a new word for that. We'll have to find a new word for homework, I think. Does anyone like
well,
that word? Please.
well,
Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Sorry.
yeah.
Let me
So
distract
here's the
myself there.
thing: the homework will be um, at the end of the 4 week class. You'll be recording a 90-second sizzle reel, right? Which combines maybe the one or three voices that you've come up with. And so I'm thinking that people are going to be working on, a lot of people are going to be working on a specific pitch, right? They have a product, they want to get it out there, maybe they want to create a commercial. So, long story short, I see your hand up there, Peter, so I'll end up here. Imagine it's a 4 week experience that teaches you a ritual, which involves the triangle of communication, the character cross, the tone diamond, the five fingers of self direction, and the totem pole of auditioning. And once you learn that ritual, you can prepare just about any communication. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, I was just going to quickly say that instead of calling it homework, you could call it like a pet project or an adopted pet project that they have to foster and take care
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, the thing is, what's going to really happen during the course is that after people have like day one, the gym is Twitter Spaces because they're going to be taking what they learned from the voice acting class and without even realizing it, they're going to start using it in their communications in Twitter Spaces. So Twitter Spaces is kind of like the gym for them to test out these ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to have to run this past Madam Treasurer because I'm interested. Um, yeah, that's a really good pitch, mate. I'm really interested. I'm really keen, and if it was up to me, I'd be in. So, we need to probably talk about the schedule and time, uh, when it's going to happen, and whether or not I can sort of tap into that with what I've got going on here. But yeah, like my main motives here are how do I create tangible results from these types of spaces? How do I couple in to these collective consciousnesses and into these types of spaces, and then use that to benefit and decouple it, and use that in a society and help society, the society around me, grow? How do I improve my society? My Yeah, so let's keep talking about this. So you said two more spaces left, and we have to nut out the time that it's done, and it's done on Zoom. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be doing it over Zoom. I know there will be like a time difference, right, between us, and so we could always hammer that out. It's also,
Mm-hmm.
again, it goes back to a timing thing. So if now is not the right time. I had a bunch of people say, you know what, I can't do it in the next 2 weeks, but I'll be ready in the next 4 or the next 6. And I was like, yeah, completely fine, right? It's just when there are a handful of people who are like itching to take things forward. Does that make sense? Right? And so I didn't want to delay things too much
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we're getting into the one of the busiest business times of the year. You know, September to November is when a lot
yeah,
of work
yeah.
gets done. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
At least in recruiting. A lot of people get hired between September to November because companies have to use up their hiring budgets or they lose them next year.
Yeah,
So it's busy. And I think
yeah,
we have a small window of opportunity, which is called the bear market. And if we can learn the things we need to launch our careers now, or our new careers, or our third careers now, then I think we can surf the wave of this bull market. whether it comes in 5 years or 18 months or 6 months.
Yeah. So let's talk. Definitely interested. Let's sort of pencil me in as a
Absolutely.
tentative booking. I'll talk to my Soli. I'll let her know. And what this sort of ties in with something that's very interesting, because right now this is one of the challenges of spaces. That how do we then, because everyone's got different timelines we're working, but essentially we're all traveling through in the same space time. But what happens is, the sun goes down and it comes up, and we have to behave accordingly, and we have our own lives that we have to perform tasks in, and we have responsibilities. So this goes into what we were talking about, is like the potential and the technology that we have in our hands right now. Essentially, something can be started where a soundbite, an introduction, is put up where it's asked, poses a sort of like a quick lesson. And I'd like to play around with this, where it sort of sets out a quick lesson, and then that gets posted in some sort of space room, and then everyone hears that sound bite, and then gives feedback. Has to give feedback to it, so that we can sort of have this education and decouple, perform our responsibilities in society, and then recouple at a certain time. That timestamp might have that soundbite might have an expiry date, which creates a sense of urgency. And then we all have to sort of give a response and interact and continue to perform the course. So this goes into my sort of what I'm sort of theorizing around. How do we work and benefit and sort of contort these spaces and these types of courses to be perceived as more user-friendly? KC.
So, because the idea is to have a consistent flow of people, not necessarily just a singular event, it makes me think like of automating the initial stages. So, if there were, I don't know, 6 videos that you had to watch and go through before you were able to take the class in preparation to get you aligned with the mentality and the atmosphere that you were going into, and just to automate the very very beginning steps, just to get people lined up correctly, that it maybe be a way to get a funnel more consistently going to feed that schedule. Just a thought.
Yep, I like that idea, because and I think, but it's important to say it's not only that you have to watch the video, because within education there needs to be that feedback loop.
That interaction,
Sorry, say that again, Casey.
Sorry, just thinking out loud that there has to be that interaction in the education.
So it goes back to what Soyu was saying about content, and so maybe working off that idea as we're brainstorming, what happens is there's an invitation. We're all going to sit down together and watch this video clip, and I want everyone to give their opinion and thoughts and post that back up in the feedback loop type thing. Does that make sense? That sort of gives it back. Provides that feedback loop. And again, with that theory of what I was talking about. So yeah, I'm just conceptualizing something here. So I'm not saying your course has to run this way, but I just think it's something, just another little branch chain of something we're talking about that branches off and we keep in mind as we theorize. That's about things. But tying it back into the voice course, yeah, I'm in. I just got to get Madam Treasurer in.
I think what I can do too as well is there's a lot of things we can talk about, but at the end of the day, we talked about the importance of connection, right? And so in an ideal scenario, I would have people have a Zoom call with Christian and Steph if she's available, and you can ask them directly, right? Because at the end of the day, they're the one teaching the course, not me, right? And so it's nice to interact with me, but when you interact with Christian, you can see if you guys vibe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then kind of
I
take
vi-
it from there.
I try and vibe with everyone. I really try to vibe with everyone, give that opportunity because I'm here to hear people's stories first and foremost, and it's a bit of a hobby of mine. And I have so many different agendas, so I've got so many questions that need answering. So I have to vibe with people because, you know, face value in these spaces you don't really know, and so you just got to sort of get past the jargon and truly find out who these beings are and who's behind these icons. But so let's tee that up. Definitely, I'd love to chat to them. I really would.
Yeah,
And so it's other members of the syndicate
that's
that
right.
and
Hmm.
how many are at the moment?
I think we have. I have to. Let me check my text messages. Nice. So we have two people that have paid so far, and another handful of people that have committed. Right.
Will
And
they?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Will they take crypto?
Good question. Uh, would you prefer to pay in crypto?
Project of mine. Another project is to find some sort of product or service in which I can exchange crypto in. So,
Um, Let me. Do you? Which crypto would you like to use?
oh, I'm open to suggestion. We you know what we could actually do with this? We could find a some sort of performing art DAO, and we could all get into that if they are open for the project.
Wow, that's an
Yeah,
interesting idea.
you know, so at
Um,
the same time we're connecting with some sort of artistic community and just sort of finding another community, tapping into.
so, so I just text him, right? I'm in a group chat with him and Steph. Let me send again. I have to turn on my mobile. Seeing if they accept it. It's a good question. Um, I've
I have to go soon too, so it probably can't happen tonight. It's because we're going
oh,
on
no, no,
on
no.
a
I'm just interested in exploring that idea. It's a good point. Um, but yeah, at the very least, anyone interested, I would introduce to Christian first, because there's no guarantee that the people that I get along with, other people are going to get along with as well, right?
Mm,
And because this is really relationship based, right? And in this voice acting class, they ask you to access emotions, right?
yeah,
It's one of those things where, the person has to feel a certain level of comfort. I think they get the most out of it. So
yeah,
at the very least, we would just put a pin on it. I would set a time for Christian and Steph to chat with you. And even if there's other people that you know that would want to jump on the call,
yeah.
even if they don't do it, just to kind of have the experience, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
You
I'll keep
know,
that.
and they can, yeah. The other thing I can do is if like okay, so let me go here because oh yeah. So I asked Christian how he got the voice idea, and he said that the role that he was playing called for him to be a jerk, and he learned how to be a jerk in California, and so he channeled the Californian surfer jerk, and it ended up being his main voice. So there's two videos at the top with Christian Steph. This is an interview from 2.5 years ago, maybe almost 3 years ago now. And we initially worked with about 20, 25 students. And because over the past 2 years, I've seen a lot of success with those students, getting onto like mainstream TV, I was like, okay, there is no reason for me to be trepidatious or hold back. Not to say that everyone's going to be as successful, but there is success here, if people decide to take it forward. And to me, that's good enough. Let me not hold back the opportunity.
So, you're seeing that this sort of course is not only advantageous for, the performing actor, it's advantageous for anyone who's using their voice and communicating in the world. So
That's it. Like the first person I introduced to the course used to sell data centers for Lenovo, and he's ran with this so far. And other people, like himself, have gotten agents. And it's like, wow, you got an agent? You know how hard it is to get an agent? You like like an actual recognized agent that's booking people, right? And so now, if you go to the Infinity Forge, I can send you all this stuff, but you'll see people auditioning for roles, people getting roles on the main screen. And so now that that engine's running, I ask myself, who are the people around me that would like to have a career with their voice? And since we spend so much time on Twitter Spaces interacting, I feel that there's a lot of people around me that would like to have a career whose lifestyle included using their voice dominantly, because clearly they naturally want to do it. We sign in to talk to each other all the time, and I don't believe that this is just idle chatter.
yeah, no, it's extremely valuable, and just something else that I want to do with of Five Prong, and obviously it's just it's merely a concept at the moment, but I want to get the wallet up on the Twitter Spaces for everyone, so that and I want to maybe see if people are interested when we're in these types of spaces, and we get that moment where we vibe with something, someone produces something deep, and we feel as if we've really increased our knowledge base and wisdom. We can then tip that person something, a value. It doesn't have to be anything, just minute. It's just that exchange of thank you, creating that type of starting to create an economy within these types of spaces and play around with those types of economies, because not I don't know if it's like right for the syndicate, but for the other types of spaces that we're in and stuff like that. I'm not sure, because I know there's some people here who want to keep the syndicate. They think it's very important to keep the syndicate the way it is and not complicate it too much as well. So I'm playing around with that idea.
I really want the syndicate to be whatever its members want to be. Does that make sense? Even if it's not called the syndicate. I don't care about the name. I care about the actions and the connections that are happening. Because in any given day, I know that a founder needs access to capital, access to a new hire, access to doctrine, access to technology, access to leadership. And we all need that, because a good CEO is someone who surrounds themselves with people who are strong where they're weak, right? And with that core in mind, I think there's a lot of industries and use cases for if we can show people how to not necessarily go it alone. I think they'll realize that all of the things that they'll be looking for is actually in these Twitter spaces, and they don't realize it yet, right? You have financial expertise with KC, you have technology expertise with Web3, you have roofing and AI art expertise with Peter, and you have classroom management with you. So tell me what you can't do with that expertise.
Cook a meal.
Well, it's funny because the initial opportunity that saw investment from the syndicate was someone who had a Bitcoin, who wanted to start a Bitcoin hedge fund, a small hedge fund, and he was able to do that. He was able to attract an investor, and so when people saw that, they realized, oh shit, this is actually happening, right? And I think it made everyone around the table realize, wait a minute, I actually have a chance So now that I have a chance of succeeding, am I really going to do this?
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
It's not an easy decision to make.
For me, it is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but you've been working towards that decision for a long time, right? And I talked to the investor and I said, hey, you want to check in every couple of months, right? And hear, 3 to 5 startups. And he's like, sure, I'll come back, right? But don't call me unless they're ready. That's what he told me. And I'm like, fair enough, right? So imagine that I know that I can potentially attract an investor to this space, right? On a given day. Let's say it's 45 days away. The success of those startups is going to be based on their ability to express themselves with their voice. Right?
and then the fact that you have the opportunity to allow anybody in the world to sit down and listen in to that. If you record that and put that out there, hey, we did this and here it is right here, go back and have a look at it. This is the beginning of time travel. Like, this is where, and then they can put their information and start to interact with it. And they could even throw their own pitch into it. And that venture capitalist comes back, has a look at it. And he's like, okay, I like this pitch too. Let's nurture this guy. Comes back to you. Let's nurture this guy in spaces and let's see where it goes. So yeah, I really like what you're putting down because it sort of very much aligns with what my mind is sort of thinking how the potential of spaces can prove how the potential of spaces and these metaverses can start the beginning of like essentially like an education chain. So yeah, congratulations. That's great, mate. Yeah, really good. Glad I found you, Peter.
Well, oh, go ahead, Pete. I'm just putting some stuff from the investor at the top so you could actually hear his voice from the clip spaces. Go ahead, Pete.
Just every single day that I come in here, right? I'll say that started out sounding very like annoyed. Every day that I come in here, I always leave fit, like if I haven't just fallen asleep because I'm dead tired or drunk or whatever. I always leave feeling like, what the hell have I found myself in? And not in a bad way. I'm like, this place seems to keep pulling me back in because I enjoy the people here. Like, I enjoy the conversations I have here. That's a beautiful thing. It's hard to find people on the internet, especially like that are actually willing to have a normal conversation about things while still also looking to better their lives or, just build and grow together, not just independently. A lot of them, like, like I've said it before, I've been in spaces where all I hear is people shilling projects that they're working on or whatever, and they're talking about how great it is, all these things they've achieved. And I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not here to listen to someone sit there and rattle off. Like, and it just seems to be that time and time again. Whereas here, like, yeah, we do have our little conversations about those things, even like this conversation, but it's more than that. It doesn't feel like that conversation. And I think that's the beauty of the people here and everyone else, like, and what they're working on, because they've all come from the same kind of perspective that they're sort of tired of the bullshit. Like, they know they got to do their thing. They know they want to, like, everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to break free of the rat race, right? That's just life. But they have these great ideas that just, like, no shit, that's an amazing idea. Like, I'm not going to start listing them all, but like, just the fact that you've got this space here for that kind of thing, and it just seems to attract the right kind of people, is something that's a little bit bizarre to witness from my perspective, because it's not something I really thought was possible in this day and age, if that makes sense.
Can I ask you a question, Peter? You're feeling like there is some sort of huge potential going on right now, and you just don't quite know what it is, but you want to know more.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm always drawn towards that kind of thing in some way. it seems to be the story of my life that if I just let go and follow a certain path of uncertainty and just whatever, then that's where, you know, the most beautiful things in life start to happen. Whether it's relationships, whether it's you know, new jobs or whatever it is, it's always in that sort of vein. And I sort of feel like this space, I've got this huge sense of uncertainty and not knowing exactly what this is all building towards. But I see like these little drips of, okay, so there's this that's going on. Okay, so there's this that's going on. And, you know, every day I sort of learn more and more, and it starts to paint this bigger picture. What that picture is, I still don't know. And I want to know.
I'm going to give you 3 words that have been sort of bouncing around in the universe, my mind universe that I'm starting to call it, because I've been exploring it and sort of going and searching it internally and doing some meditation and some types of thoughts like visual thought thinking and thinking about where these technologies can take us. And I keep coming back to these 3 words, and it's past, present, and future. So yeah, I'm exploring that, and yeah, I'm gonna just, you know, we're recording this right now, and hopefully one day it'll make sense, and we can figure it out together, mate.
Well, and yeah, I think we're past the point of maybe putting the hands up because everyone here's onto it now. I feel like I was thinking about that today, right? While I was driving, I'm not sure if it was to work or from
That's
work.
strike number 1, Peter. Not just strike ahead.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that while driving to work or driving from work or while at work. I can't remember. It was somewhere in that timeline of today. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, there's a lot of times in my life where things just haven't made sense at all. But now looking back on it, it all kind of is part of the story, you know, the narrative that is who I am in this moment. And I don't know who I'm going to be tomorrow. I don't know who I'm going to be in 2 years' time. I don't know who I'm going to be in 20 years' time. I don't know if I'm even going to be alive in that period of time, you know? Like, I could die tomorrow, for all I know. But the things that don't make sense to me now, those are the most exciting things. If they don't make complete sense to me, then I'm intrigued. And
Yeah.
especially the more experiential things, not so much the, like, you know, there's a lot of things out there that I don't understand, that I have no intention of ever, like, digging into or caring about. I mean, like, call that willful ignorance, but there's just some things I don't care to learn, right? But on the more holistic and experiential front of things, where it's like, you know, these Twitter spaces, this is still like a relatively new thing to me. I've only really, I never really thought I'd even get into Twitter. It's like, I don't know, being an Australian, it just never really seemed like a big deal here. And then now it's like part of my day-to-day life. And that's like such a weird little transition. It's happened like almost overnight. And these spaces are a part of the reason for that. So
To me, when I say like this is a place where you can access potentially because of the, you know, the people in this room, some of which we don't know, you know, a lot of people we don't know. Look at Andreessen Horowitz, right? And what they offer startups. Like, what does Andreessen Horowitz offer you? A16Z, led by Mark Andreessen. What do they offer you? They not only offer you capital, but they offer you their Rolodex. And arguably, their Rolodex of connections throughout the planet is more valuable than the capital. So I asked myself, okay, so what do they exchange? Well, they give you capital, they give you access to their people, to their doctrines, to their differential access to technology, and their leadership. Is it possible for us to do that for ourselves in a distributed way?
Oh, that's anything's possible in the syndicate.
Well, Pete, you're asking like, where is this headed? To me, that's what I always had in the back of my mind. I have a company called Unicorn Launching, and the purpose of Unicorn Launching is to launch unicorns worth launching. How do you do that? Well, you have to accelerate your way towards what Ron might call founder product market fit, because you need to have alignment between the co-founders before you attack product market fit with any efficacy. And so, what are the ingredients of that? Arguably, A16Z, who's been at the bottom of what? Zynga, Farmville, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, right? Instagram. Imagine being at the bottom of all of those things. Well, how did they do it? Well, they provided access it was centralized, but it doesn't have to be, right? We could push it in a decentralized way where there's no center, where people can access capital, people, process, technology, doctrine, leadership. That's it. And now I believe we actually have the nodes that can execute that. So imagine a startup comes into the room, right?
Yeah.
And they tell us what's up. Then we say, okay, so where are you at? Okay, so you want to work your way towards marginal monthly recurring revenue. Okay, so meet with Zach. He's the discipline side. He's going to make sure you stay focused in this busy, confusing world. And then we're going to make sure that financially your personal finances are taken care of. And then we're going to make sure that you understand what you have to do before you start scaling. And then maybe you need a developer and maybe you need some UX. We have those nodes already. It just, who do you need to meet today in what order?
Yeah, I've got some software developer friends that I used to rub shoulders when I was consulting, because in the SaaS software as a service, cloud-based solutions, where they had the APIs and they sort of focused on one particular role, and then they start to sort of connect them together for small to medium-sized businesses. And these were some smart brains, and one of the guys, he was not only a smart brain, but he had the charisma and the character and the know-how, and he's pulling $3,000 a day in consulting fees. And one of my jobs was to try and sell him. Yeah, I feel like I should reach out to him and catch up with him and see what he's doing these days. But yeah, there's definitely so much potential. That sounds like a really exciting thing to be a part of.
You ask yourself though, what are the muscles that are required to do something like that? And to me, without communication, we have nothing. Right?
Exactly.
We could have the best ideas on the planet. You could have the ability to, turn lead into gold. If we can't understand it, then we're going to be stuck with a bunch of lead.
And the other thing is too, like, if you're pulling that sort of thing into these types of, if you're able to pull them into these types of spaces and show them that it's a safe space where they can be themselves and not have to worry about the world around them and how they're perceived, it's going to do the same thing for them that it's all done for us, right?
Well, here's the dangerous part. And I say dangerous because it's really powerful. Many of the people that we resonate with are on the spectrum, if not clinically diagnosed with autism.
Well, that's perfect, isn't it? Why is that scary?
You understand how powerful that could be. Because most of the time, these people, because of their physical meat body interpersonal skills, are pushed by the wayside. Not here.
Yeah.
Here, you can be on the spectrum and get along with us. Oftentimes, the people we have friction with are on the spectrum and are still figuring out what it means to interact with other people. But you can tell that they have a bunch of ideas to get out because they try to tell you all of the ideas in the first 15 seconds. And when I hear that, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Do I have someone who's a genius in front of me that I'm not perceiving as such simply because they haven't figured out how to communicate with people? If they haven't figured out how to communicate with people, that's fine.
Yeah.
They still might be of a hyper amount of value, not only to themselves, but to each other. We just have to tease that out. And that's why I'm always very slow to, you know what I mean? Quiet someone in the beginning. I'm glad we were able to do it together. But sometimes when I hear friction, I'm like, I wonder where this is going. Because, as a recruiter, not all of the most talented people are also the nicest, right? And there's a way to deal with people who aren't necessarily nice, right? There is a way for us to all kind of work together. We just have to understand how to play together as a band and understand, okay, we're in D major now. Okay. Oh, we're in D minor now. Okay, great. Okay, this is the bridge. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, mate, this has been a great conversation, and you're all beautiful minds, and I thank you for allowing me to entangle with them. I have to
What time
jump
is it over there?
in world. It is currently 11:17, and if I allow myself to at least have 6 hours sleep before we get on the road, I will be fine. So yeah, thank you for sharing your time with me and affording it to me. And if we had that little tip culture set up right now, I'd be giving you, you know, a little bit of cream on top. But we'll look at that, and if anyone's interested in doing that and figuring that out, or could figure it out for me, and then and show me how to set it up, I'd be happy to do it. All right. Well, I'm going to go and lay my mind down and do some deep dreaming. And Peter, just before I go, someone said something to me once, and I think you're in the space when I was saying it, and they said to me, a part of your mind is pissing themselves laughing right now, and another part of your mind is being blown away because you've just had some realizations. So maybe that'll make sense if you're not doing it right now, one day, and might be in a dream. Who knows? Yeah, I look forward to hearing all your journeys, and I'm going to leave this space, and I hope you live as well as I do. Ciao, ciao for
So
now.
too. Take care, my friend.
Interesting morning.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Hurls is a special kind of dude.
It reminds me a lot of myself in a way, but a bit more verbally articulate. He manages to put the ideas that are already in my head into words in a way that I can't, but struggle to find the correct word flow with in a congruent kind of way. Like I get there, you hear the way I talk. I'm aware of it. I
Yeah.
often stop and think. I try to avoid saying the word because, and this is something that I found a while ago, is that if you stop saying and like quite so much, you actually sound less stupid because it creates a space for tension when people are listening. But it also gives you that space to think without sort of, there we go, doing that.
and that's what I had to, that's what I found speaking slower afforded me the opportunity to do. Because when I forced myself to slow down, I could think and talk at the same time, just like I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's a fascinating kind of art form in a way because speaking is an art. I think it's one that we don't really recognize as one as such. I mean, we have poetry, we have singing. Those are typically the arts of the voice, right? But even just speaking, you got some great presenters. You got amazing leaders that will give the most inspirational and motivating speeches that can bring people together and just rile up a crowd for better or worse. That is an art. That is a massive skill that is undervalued in the way that it's not sold. Not undervalued in what it's worth to society, but it's not really sold, right? There have been a few, definitely have been companies that would, try to sell the art of speaking, the art of listening, but people don't really understand just how powerful it is. I don't know if that makes sense completely. I'm not trying
No. I think you brought up a crazy point. KC is an expert in financial literacy, right? What about who teaches voice literacy? The ability to understand what's happening when someone's trying to convince you of something with their voice. For example, sometimes people speak in threes. They say, this is my idea because of this, and especially of this. Do you ever hear people do that? That's your first sign that
Yeah.
they're trying to convince you of something. And so if you know that they're trying to do it because you recognize the technique, how much more savvy can you be in dealing with these people who are trying to pull the wool over your eyes using flowery language?
Oh, it's for me. I'm very aware when people are trying to sell me something, right? Like, it's hard to explain. There have been very few times where someone has done it correctly, if that makes sense. The one time, and this was even just like a messenger chat, the one time someone did it correctly was by starting a conversation with me that seemed completely normal. Like, full normal conversation. We dove in and we talked about each other's lives. We got to know each other a little bit, and then he brought this thing up. And I was like, that was the point of this conversation. You should have been a salesman instead of what you're doing. But for all I know, he was a salesman. It could have all been lies,
Well, if you look at Glenn Ross, the only person who's able to make a sale, to ICANN's point, was Al Pacino. And if you look at Al Pacino in the bar with the prospect, he never talks about land once.
It's the beauty of it, right?
That's it. That's the magic of it. That's why you like. I don't know if I can teach someone how to do sales. There's a lot of people asking me to sell for them, and I can do it. I'm not sure if I can teach someone else how to do it, but if I can, we can have something very powerful.
I think teaching how to use the voice more than teaching sales is probably the more important aspect. I actually agree with I agree with this idea in general, right? I back it. The reason I back it is it all comes back to what I said earlier, like not today, but like days ago, right? It was like, why should I care? I didn't say that in a way of like suggesting to anyone here that like if they're going to present an idea to me specifically that like I don't care. But the thing is, at a base level of just I come in here to have conversations. I go about my day-to-day life, whatever it is. All the conversations I have, I'm not having them under the pretext of I'm here looking for someone to sell me something. The only times where that is the case, right, is if I go to a shop and I approach a salesperson and I'm like, look, I need something like this. And, I give them my prompt, right? I'm looking for this. Can you sell me something that provides this for me? And why should, sorry, let me just take that back a second. But the thing that really sells me on it isn't when they just go, yep, this is the product, get this one. Right? Like, it's never the case that if they just say, yep, this is what you want, take it, go. Like, I'll ask questions like, why should I get this as opposed to that? So what I look for in a salesperson is someone that isn't necessarily going to try and force something on me straight away. It's someone that's willingly there, but not in my face. It's someone that doesn't necessarily approach me first, but has their presence in my field of view or whatever, and just sort of, I'm aware of them. Most of the time, products and things tend to sell themselves, right? You don't really have to go out of your way to sell them. But if someone doesn't really know, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to be able to tell them, like with a good deal of passion about the product, like what you believe in, what like what your understanding of this field of things is, and then all that kind of jargon and everything that actually convinces me or makes me care for that product or that thing. So teaching sales is probably a lot more difficult than purely teaching voice, but I think teaching voice is probably half of teaching sales, if not more, just based on that. Casey, you just have the hand up.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything you're just saying. I've been in sales for so long that it like personally offends me when I hear a bad sales pitch. I'm like, oh, come on. And listening to people struggle through their personal challenges by spending time in Twitter Spaces and getting into those rooms where it's all chaos and they can add to the chaos if they want to and vent and get it out. But to your point, they're getting experience talking. They're getting that opportunity for a throwaway effort. Doesn't matter if I fuck up or I sound like an idiot. I'm just practicing. It's fine. And the more they do that, the more comfortable they get. And then they start touching the heart before they touch the hand. They start making connection and understanding what it is to pause and listen and not tell but ask. Like the first thing any salesperson should be doing is asking, not telling. I've got the greatest thing in there. What do you need? What are you here for? What do you need? I'm interested in you. That's
If I could do a book club with you guys, it would be Oren Clough's Pitch Anything. People like that quote, you know, when you encounter someone else, your brain has to decide whether you eat it, fight it, or fuck it. That's from Pitch Anything. And it talked about the biology of the brain. And it said that the major mistake that all salespeople are making is when they encounter their prospect, they're trying to sell to the prefrontal cortex, and nothing could be stupider because you do not access the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, until you let the amygdala know, which is your crocodile brain, that you're safe to interact with. Changed my life.
It's a pretty wild concept because when you think about it, that part of our brain, our decision-making part of our brain, when directly challenged, is almost always going to oppose out of resistance, right? We always want to resist things because that's the easiest path. That's the safest path, and the path of least resistance. Sorry, I think I just repeated myself there, but
No, it's good. I put a diagram to the top, which it shows the three parts of the brain. Obviously, a simplification. You have this crocodile brain, the midbrain, and the neocortex. The neocortex we think of as the left side of the brain, which is the technical information gathering, parsing part of the brain, right? But the crocodile brain is what we forget about, which is the part of the brain that has to be appeased before you have the privilege to moving on to their thinking brain.
Hey, brother, I gotta bounce out. It's time to attend to other things.
How
Always
dare you?
appreciate you. I know.
Bandit.
So you stink and you look funny. Just so you
Yeah.
know.
I agree. How did you know? Did you get the new Twitter update where you can smell me now?
Our wives are friends now, so I know.
Oh, no, shit.
I know
Now,
everything.
now you know my length. It's very uncomfortable now. How am I supposed to pretend that, I have a larger penis than you do now that you know? I mean, that's why I come on Twitter Spaces,
Shut the fuck up.
The reason I come on Twitter Spaces is to compare my size to you. And now that that's gone, what am I supposed to do?
I wish I had this on speakerphone so Karen can hear that one. Oh my god, I got
It's
tears in
okay,
my
I'll clip it.
Oh my shit. Oh, thanks for putting me in a good mood before you make this call. It'll help.
you just tag as like the average Twitter space user.
All right, so it's called It's Okay, I'll Clip It. That's what it's called.
Shut the fuck up.
So nobody really knows. Be like, oh, this looks boring. I'll skip it.
Oh my god.
Some of the best
Ooh.
things, some of the best jokes, I put the most benign titles, like this is really boring, so that nobody listens to it.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon. You guys have a good one.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Take care, Casey.
Hey, Ann, how's it going?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Can you hear me? Morning. Exciting, good conversation, actually. Just woke up, just turned on Twitter. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I liked what you were saying, Michael, about the crocodile brain.
Have you encountered the crocodile brain before in your travels, Sam?
Every day. Very funny. Oh man. Oh, listen. So the Florida thing is 100% now going.
It's
Happening.
100%.
It's 100%.
100%. What does 100% mean?
100% means that I will be living there by the end. I think I'm moving in October. I'm gonna give myself a month to get some shit together, and then I'm gonna go there. There's
Once
me in
once you're
5 other
settled,
people.
once you're settled, what do you think the first thing you're gonna do is? Let's say you're done. You've done your minimum viable unpacking, right?
Yeah.
Everything's plugged in. Internet's
Yeah.
working. What do you think you're gonna do first?
Oh, I fucking know. I'm gonna drive down to Daytona Beach. Because I just looked on YouTube. I had no idea. You know what I mean? You can drive on the beach there, like in Texas. So I'm gonna take my car. I'm gonna fucking drive under that arch. I'm gonna go take pictures of I'm gonna time it to where it's like low tide or high. I'm not sure which one yet. You know what I mean? And just go and drive down and watch. Well, actually, I was gonna say watch the sunset, but it's now I'm on the East Coast, so I have to watch the sunrise, right? So
And have
yeah,
you ever have you met Pete before?
Pete. Pete.
Pete, he's right beside you.
Oh, hey, Pete. I mean, we've been in rooms
Yeah.
together. Yeah. Does Pete live in Florida?
He lives in
No
the
idea.
Florida of the Eastern Hemisphere.
Oh, I see. Nice. Hi, Pete.
Man, yeah, Australia.
Oh, of
Happy
course.
days.
Yeah, duh. All you had to do was say hi, and I was like, oh yeah, I have met him. he's Australian.
The reason it just flashed through my brain. 'Cause I was talking to Peter about how we could do collaborations between some of the people in the syndicate and what they do with their voice and his artwork. And it just flashed through my brain. Peter, have you ever seen Anne's artwork? I wonder what would happen if you did a collaboration.
I've seen some of the photography she does, and I like the style a lot, actually. Like all the stuff with the reflections.
Yeah. Thank
in the
you.
water.
Thank you. I'm looking at yours right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to say mine's anything amazing or anything like that. I just do it because I think it's cool, right?
Yeah.
That's
That's why
all
I
it
do
is, really.
it as well, though. You know what I mean? I do it because I have a compulsion to take pictures, I guess. Or my compulsion is taking pictures in my brain, right, or my head. So like I was like, fuck, I just need a machine to do it. So yeah, I have a compulsion to take pictures. So like I take pictures all the time, and that's what I see. You know, and I've just turned that into something that whatever. Yeah, that's what I see when I
I mean,
look
that's
up.
kind of like my approach. I mean, I've done photography a bit in like about 10 years ago. No, I broke away from that for a while, but I have some stuff on my Instagram that like photos and stuff I used to take. I always tried to lean into a sort of aesthetic kind of thing that felt me.
Yeah.
Done a bit of drawing, a little bit of drawing occasionally, but now at the moment it's just this. This is my current obsession. Because it's
Nice.
like that. You know,
I
it
put some
allows
of
me to
your
explore those pictures in my brain.
I put some of your pictures, Pete, at the top.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I love that tree one. Oh, I love that actually. Ooh,
Thanks. That was
that's
it was gonna be
cool.
like an album cover.
Dude, that's actually, I really, really, really like that. I'm gonna retweet it. What should I say? I'll just retweet.
And Pete, I put my favorite picture from Anne at the top as well.
Ooh, and then the eyeball with the road. Yes, this is amazing. Oh, I love your stuff. Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I love that. The seeing red. That's an awesome photo.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
Yeah,
actually awesome.
Thank you. I get those photos from. I don't use a drone or anything. It's terrifying. I like lean all the way over the pier, and I strapped my camera, of course, to my to my arm, and then I lean all the way over because you got to go all the way over, and then I'm just like click 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 whenever I see try to see a cool wave coming in. But yeah, those are fun to do. I look like a crazy person, I think, because I'm kind of like always I'm like I can't just stay in one spot, right? So I'm moving. This is handheld. This isn't with a tripod or anything. So like I'm really trying to like hit the spot at the right time, and I don't know. It's kind of it gives me. I like to give myself challenges in my photography like that. It's kind of
Well,
fun for
Pete
me.
and I have started. The thing is, like, because Pete understands this AI art, I'm gonna put this to the top. So I just was, you know how you like make sketches when you're on the phone, right? Of stuff on your notepad. So if you look at the top, you'll see a sketch that I just did absentmindedly while I'm on the phone, probably on a Twitter space. And he took that as an input and created this art right beside it. And it blew my mind.
Wow. Oh, Peter, okay. And by the way, I've got two things to say, Michael. I don't know what it is, but you and I have the same handwriting.
No way.
Yeah, we're very similar. And it's
Let me write your name. Hold
similar.
on.
I mean, my
A.
handwriting changes a lot, right? Changes all the time. But I look at that and I'm like, is that a weird sketch that I did too? Or like, in that nurses looks way too familiar to me.
Hold on. Let me take a picture
And Veep
of
looks.
me writing your name.
That's so funny. Anyway, but no, I love that. God, I that's the thing. I've really kept my mouth shut about this whole movement of moving towards AI, and a lot of other artists and other mediums have, brought up their concerns about it or their thoughts about it. And to me, it's just like, oh man, it's just another expression of what you can do. I mean, AI art. What is AI art? Isn't a digital camera AI art at some point, right? Isn't my
How
go?
dare you? And the
So
camera is human. Okay. We're talking about how there's a lot of artists who use there are a lot of artists who react negatively towards AI artists because um, they think it's a perversion almost.
it's just a different tool, is it not?
Well, that's what. Well, Anne brought up the point and be like, yeah, how do you think? How human do you think that Leica lens is?
That's true. I mean, come on.
You're
I
not
mean,
supposed to laugh. This is
if we're
serious.
gonna go there with it, then I'm gonna go there. I go there with it. Like you can't give me that argument. Give me another argument. Give me another reason. You know what I mean? Like, but it's all just personal. I think it's personal. I think it's personal to the point where like we look at AI art and we're like, so it's the way I look. It's I've told the story before. I went to school. I wanted to be a painter, right? I was like, oh man, I would love to be a painter. I would love to recreate. I wanted to actually recreate and help restore like Renaissance paintings. I thought to me that would be one of the best, funnest jobs. Like, I don't know, way to spend life on planet. Anyway, I found out I was a shit painter, and I guess I just didn't, it just didn't end up that way. But I really am obsessed with that kind of like style. So, I turned my photos into that, right? I found a way to turn my photography through sunsets and water into a painting, and through reflection, I turned it into a painting. Um, I can see people getting upset because like I can just take a picture of a sunset and throw it through. I don't know how to do AI. I don't know what it even entails, right? And I think artists get jealous of their own non-abilities to do that as a person. They're just jealous of the machine. Guess that was the long-winded, weird way of saying that. Peter, I'm sorry, you had your hand up.
It's fine. No, they should be jealous. No, they shouldn't. There's really no reason for them to be, but I think it's like this stuff is getting more and more accessible, and it still takes very artistic minds to actually interact with it. Like, it's not replacing artists in any sense of the word. It's just another tool. Like, it's literally just another tool, another medium. You know, we as people have to guide it, like a stubborn little child that, you know, wants candy at a store or something like that. You know, it doesn't just do its own thing. It needs guidance. It needs the
And
right
I think
prompting. It
maybe
needs the right
it's the
settings.
miseducation, not the miseducation. It's just the non-education of AI art, possibly.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you ask me how is it done, I'd be like, I have no fucking idea. But ask me about my opinion, you know what I mean? Well, I won't give it to you either because I've learned to keep my mouth shut. But people are more willing to give you their opinion on it. But then when you ask them, well, how's it even made? They can't even tell you. So I think
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I would like to know. It's
Well,
like,
that's kind of why I've been sharing stuff. Like, okay, so I do draw as well. Like, I'm not maybe not an amazing drawer, but like I do my own little thing with it because I don't want people that do come to my page to view me as some dude that's just like shitting on art by typing something in really quickly and saying, you know, this is by Salvador Dali. Here's a picture of this, and now the AI spits something out. Like, it's not quite that simple. It can be, but a lot of those images are boring. Like, they're cool, but they're boring. There's a lot of artists in the space that will use it just to like create ideas and then like draw and paint on top of or whatever, or composite them in Photoshop into more complicated things. You know, there's people doing it with video and that. So it's one of those sort of transcendental mediums that ties in a lot of different other mediums into the way you can utilize it. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think when people start, like the ones that are currently hating on it, start to wake up to the fact that, hey, like, no, it's not just about typing something in and calling yourself an artist. Like, it still takes the artistic mind to even think of something good to type in. You know, most people will just type shit. Like,
yeah, okay, yeah, and again,
because,
like I think it's just the actual process of doing it. Like you know, when I hear things like typing in, I'm like, what are you typing in, and where are you typing it into? Like that's how I think, I'm not assuming everyone is completely ignorant of AI art, especially not in this room. But outside of this room, you know what I mean. So it's a program that you can do you put in a base photo and then you put in words on top of that, or how does that work? And then it comes back at you with something.
so it's got, and sorry, Mike, I'll just quickly finish this up and then I'll get back to you there. There's these things called notebooks, which are basically these Google Colab is one of the main platforms for it. They're like these programming, you know, they call them notebooks because they're notebooks. They're a bit of code that have a bunch of different cells and things that can run. So they're like little executables, or, you know, programs, whatever, within a big sort of thing. They do their thing, then you go on, the next one does its thing. That sounds complicated. And when I first opened one up, I was absolutely terrified. And I thought, you know what, this is a job for another day. Like, I didn't want to go anywhere near it. But I just sort of had the curiosity about me, and I was like, oh, I'm going to figure this out. And it's really actually extremely straightforward and accessible. If I can figure it out, I'm pretty sure anyone can figure it out. Well, maybe not everyone, but the platforms that are coming around now make it even easier. Like, there's a lot of great platforms like Wombo or Midjourney. Stable AI have their own thing called Dream Studio, just purely for the stable diffusion model. You know, DALI 2 from OpenAI. Like, there's a lot of different options out there for people to do this thing, and they're all basically language processing models as well as image creation models, I guess, that have been trained on, you know, like images and language. So one of the arguments that people have is more that, oh, their artwork has been stolen by this thing and they haven't been paid for it, right? But that's not exactly how it works. Like, the data sets have scraped the internet and they've learnt from the images, but they don't actually contain the images in the models. Like, there's no sampling involved in that sense, like in the traditional sense of what we call sampling, right? And then, yeah, I don't know. It's like, it seems complicated, but it's kind of not. But you still need to have creative thinking to actually use it in a way that's creative. Otherwise, it's just a meme machine, really.
Right, right. Well, I mean, again, I can always use that thing. I mean, you give 10 people an egg, you know what I mean, and tell them to scramble it, they're going to give you 10 different fucking eggs, you know what I mean, and there's going to be only going to be one or two that are really edible, and then it's going to be a bunch of crap. I mean, I think it's, you know, human beings and their, yeah, I guess their level of what they can do, right, with something. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, it's like with anything, like paintbrush, camera, yeah,
Pretty
program.
much, so just another medium.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just another medium, as you said. Yeah.
doesn't replace the artist. That's been my argument about, like, back to them the whole time, but it's sort of trying to approach it the right way, because once you start getting into the arguments, a lot of them just don't want to hear it. Like, they just want to attack. They just don't want to listen. This is a bit sad. Anyway, Mike, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, no. It's good. I love where this is going. It was just when I saw Anne and yourself side by side, it jumped out at me because I saw you take as an input the inside of a porta potty and turn that into art. So
Yeah, so you can't plug the images in. This current, like where it's at now, it's really good at taking images and turning that into other stuff. You still have to prompt it, like, and tell it sort of, guide it in the right direction. But compared to what it used to be with the image input stuff, this is getting pretty ridiculous.
well,
And I
look
just
at-
want to play with it constantly.
well, the reason I messaged you the other day is because I'm going to put it to the top, right? It's the guy who had that list of prompts who basically created almost like the creation scene. You know what I mean? From dinosaurs to, molecules to, the volcano hitting the earth. I never come across anything like it. And the person was so giving that they shared their prompts, right? And so I just put it at the top. Hopefully it shows up soon. But when you see it, it's like, I was like, hey, Pete, do you know how to do this? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, shit. So if we have the script and the voice and you have the art, then what can't we do? Subject to whatever they increase the price of Google Colab credits to next week,
Yeah. If I do animation stuff, I run it on rented servers outside of Colab anyway, because I can get better results. Like I said, no, sorry, I'm not trying to, like, yank my own horn when I say it,
No,
but
but you've done your work, you've done your research, yeah.
when you sent me that and I said, oh, we can do better, I mean, like, literally can very much do better. That animation is cool, and it was a nice expression of what Stable Diffusion was capable of at that point in time. But I could already had planned to do something like that with Disco, and I know that Disco would pull it off better based on that. Now Stable is getting the tools akin to what Disco already has, which is going to make it even better. So it's like, it's just getting better.
I'm gonna ask you something. So one might argue that the most powerful scripts on the planet, whether you agree with them or not, are religious texts, right? So,
oh, dude. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
yeah, go ahead.
my first experiment with all of this stuff was a big storyboard of Jesus as a degenerate.
Well, okay.
And then
so this is what I was thinking, right? Like, what if you just took the first part of Genesis? Do you understand, like, how cross-culturally relevant that animation would be?
So there is an animation sequence at the beginning of the movie Noah, I believe, which is pretty compelling, that almost approaches the sort of vision that I had on a psychedelic journey way long time ago. It got close, and it really made me sit up. If you can look at what is scientifically being proposed in Genesis or some other religious text, but then also make some sort of symbolic things that rear up every once in a while that echo what is happening in the religious text.
Incredible. Incredible. If you were able to not only express Genesis as the narrative, but of also the chemistry and the periodic table of what's happening when dark and light interact for the first time, those as
Yeah,
prompts into what Peter could do.
right. Exactly.
Good. What if the AI just went straight to being a psychedelic thing? And it would be like the AI started speaking to us in psychedelic images. That'd be pretty interesting. I mean, it sounds off the wall, but I'm pretty sure if you took the
Well,
Genesis story,
that's
right?
that's kind of what it's doing anyway, right? Because when you start thinking about psychedelic download, right? You wonder when you get a chunk of information. So does this come from somewhere else, or does this come from me? And then you think, well, maybe both. Um, so there's some similarities. There are symbols that run through it, and it's always really chest tightening or gut loosening to think of how similar they are to really what's happening on a, say, a physics level or a chemistry level.
I'd just like to quickly share an experience. You just said the word psychedelic download, and that is something that I've experienced more than once in my lifetime, and not always purely through psychedelics. I had an experience not too long ago, right before I started this AI art stuff, actually, where I'd been up for a few nights. I'm not going to get into the reasons as to why. Bad decisions. And at the end of it, I was trying to get to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. But I decided, no, I have to go to sleep, right? And I'm laying there, and I'd sort of started dreaming, but I was still awake. I was still very much consciously awake. And I slipped into pretty much a state that I'd say was like going into my subconscious, but while still completely, fully conscious.
I think
And it was
there's a state that it's called, and I think we had this conversation before. So I'm starting to get those little deja vu tingles. Um, the hypnagogic state, and Mike came up with this wonderful phrase having to do with nested uh, neurological functions and why this happens and why you
that's
can
the
get.
theta gamma waves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, and it is incredible. These packets, they're like packets or subroutines.
Whoa, sorry. Yeah. So let me just quickly finish the story up because I think this will fascinate you. In this state, it was like the first stage was these weird spirals that I was getting, these geometric sort of like, not the psychedelic type, but more like a machine that was spiraling, and I was like receiving an uplink to some different thing beyond this universe, right, or beyond our conscious present reality. Once, and I could hear this. The thing about this was everything that I was seeing visually or experiencing, I could also hear. It was a very like synesthesia type experience. Once that sort of like uplink had finished, it was like I just received a complete conscious download of information from my higher self in some sense, and there was a message to it, and that message was that I always get in my own way, right? I've, my whole life, all the excuses I've made, all the shortcomings and failures I've had have only been through fault of myself, and not in the sense that like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I just make all my problems, or like not in that way, but more like I just get in my own way. If I just get out of my own way, then everything will work. But from there, I went on to have this most beautiful sort of like experience in my little subconscious, and I had this weird connection to that higher self, and it was beyond words. It was kind of like a DMT experience. But
It
like,
is. It's profoundly affectionate. It's affectionate from the top down, from your higher self to your less evolved self, and then it is the profound, almost beatification, if you will, of the human looking at their godlike self. And this exchange of profound affection and love is what we should, all have in common and share. But we don't, because some people don't have access. They just don't have access to that love.
Mm. But that's why I think, like a lot of my art, I've sort of focused a little bit. I have a small series where I did these machine elves, and like the commentary with it would be like trusting the machine elves and what I've planned, or they're constantly tinkering away in the background. It's not so much that they're actually machine elves, so much as these like, we like to consider them as something beyond self, but it's just us.
I've listened to Terence McKenna, and I understand his reason for using those particular terms, and why they're so appropriate under the circumstances. I had a dream. It was not a hypnagogic dream, but in my dream, I was handed a cup, like a to-go cup, and it had, instead of my name on it, initials that stand for "You do it to yourself," right? And so I understand what it means. I mean, sometimes these packets are extremely draped in metaphor. Um, like Michael was talking about the hypnagogic state kind of stripping the language metaphor away, because it's allowing you more direct access to sort of a Klimt like images, these extreme, like if you ever see anybody's depictions of DMT um, trips fast, they all have kind of similar visual elements, and this idea of clockwork and elves spinning and almost like pulsing their messages to you. I mean, this similarity is what um, we tap into, and this is what AIs tap into, because they have access not only to us and our particular framework, but they have access to everything we've made.
It's So when I did the Joe Rogan thing with the AI animation, like Joe Rogan's little DMT trip sort of thing, it sort of picked a lot of imagery. Like I described it, I told it, okay, Joe Rogan's tripping on DMT at the start, and then it got locked into that. Like I tried to bring him down to earth. I tried prompting things like Joe Rogan's walking through a jungle, photorealism, jungle photography, blah, 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 but it was just still stuck in this kind of space. Once it got stuck there, it didn't want to like break away from that imagery, which was kind of fascinating.
Well, that's good, because I got stuck in Steve Harvey land. Steve Harvey on a night trap cam, so I'm sorry, I'm being ridiculous now, but that idea that there is some sort of archive out there that already exists of our future understandings that we desperately need access to is one that I have been looking for a long time. I've been tripping for a lot of years, with a variety of quality of hallucinogenics, and I don't need to do them anymore. Really, although I wouldn't mind doing some DMT in an ISO tank. But I honestly feel like we can really overcome some of the physical limitations that we're trying to work with now if we actually just make ourselves available for those downloads.
It's tricky. I try not to think about it too much. I just sort of try and go, okay, so that happened. Because if I think about it too much, then I'm just like, okay,
Yeah,
what the
just try
fuck?
not to think about it. Just a little bit of the call of the void going on there. I love that. It's like, oh, don't think about the trippy thing. If you feel yourself starting to, have it. It's like being, walking at night and hearing something rustling in the bushes and just trying to concentrate on getting home and to the door.
That's
It's a bit like
interesting.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that you've no real interest in doing, hallucinogenics anymore. I'm at that point too. I did a DMT trip, and it kind of cured me of not cured me, but it showed me, it literally showed me everything I needed to, right?
Exactly. You got it.
Well, I didn't get it because what I
Oh,
did is I went ahead and did it again right after, and then I got yelled at for doing it again
oh,
and was
see,
told,
they're
and
like that.
literally was told, this is your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was, yeah, it was, but I feel like I'm at that point where it's not like I've, because we can never learn or know everything. I just, right now, I'm like, I feel like I was shown everything I needed at this moment.
Right. And there'll probably be more, and there'll probably be some sort of released long chemical in your fat tissues that will pop out when you're 60 or something like that. You go, oh yeah, I remember that one. But it's it is true. It's like you can futz around. It's like when you ask the tarot deck several times about that guy, and the tarot deck has already told you he sucks. Leave him, right? But you just keep asking because you keep thinking that there may be some way, something about yourself that you could correct or fix and make the thing right. And so about the third ask of the tarot deck says, "Look, don't. You've already got the information. I've already given it to you. Get off the phone."
I've
Too.
been- Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. You go ahead because I cut you off before.
We're gonna play this game. No, all right. I'll go ahead. Yeah. No. So my experience with DMT was probably like once I had that experience of breakthrough or whatever it was is definitely. I think it's. I don't want to ever say never, but I think that was enough for one lifetime. It was pretty much the experience of coming face to face with God, whatever you want to call that, whether it's like a deity or just the universe itself or whatever the fuck it is, who knows. And the message I got was, you're not meant to be here right now. It's not your time. Like, you've got a whole life ahead of you. Go live it. And like, I'll still do other psychedelics from time to time, but I don't think I'll ever do DMT again. I know a lot of people that don't have that experience. They have like, fun times with it, whatever, and they'll go through life just having it all the time and whatever, and like, cool. But all their stories are never going to convince me that what I experienced was somehow wrong, because deep down it was like the most shattering sort of experience to have. It was the fucking scariest thing I had like experienced in my life. Not like fear wise, but just this notion of like, okay, I've come face to face with literally creation itself, and it's told me it's not my time to be here yet. And that feels like such a weird thing to experience. It's you can't put it to words when you have that experience. And it's like, why would I want to repeat that? Because it's only going to get angrier at me. It's only going to cause me more fucking like mental issues trying to understand it. So there's no sense in repeating it. When I
Well,
die, I'm sure I'll experience it.
it's like a romantic encounter with someone it's somebody that you wanted to be with for a long time, and it's the perfect night, the perfect, everything's perfect. So what are you going to do after that? You're going to start dating, you're going to start learning about each other. You're going to start sniffing each other's socks and get into all that. Are you going to preserve that perfect coming together, and that should be enough? And it's, in a way, you talk about fear and um, seeing God. It's like, but at the same time, you said it was like meeting yourself, your higher self, and so that's true. And in a way, our self is our most perfect partner, colluder, um, you know, marriage person. And that I guess we get access to those kinds of feelings every once in a while, that sort of um, the sense of individuality yet wholeness, and it's so hard. I think it's because of societal constraints of what's appropriate behavior, and you know these other kinds of things. But when we do experience it, like in a trip kind of situation, yeah, you long for it, you want it again, you want to feel that orgasm of understanding again. But chances are you're going to have to be in a totally different situation, and in a different level with yourself, to have that coming together.
It's fascinating to say that because, like, this. So I had that experience, and I mean, I could speak wild stories about what that was like. I mean, literally sitting in my bedroom and then seeing my walls in my house fall down brick by brick around me, like a literal physical falling apart of reality, was one of the most confusing things I'd ever experienced in my life. And it wasn't like you know when you take like something like acid or mushrooms and you can sort of feel the distortions that are happening in your head, like the hallucinations are part and part with the mental head fuck. This did not feel anything like that. I felt completely like me, like absolutely myself, normal, sober self. Just I was watching everything fall apart around me, and then I go into this space, and I'm just like, "What the fuck is going on?" So that was more the scary part, and the confrontingness of like that God or self or whatever in that moment was the, not scary in like a fear way, but just that what the fuck, like this is intense, like this is not what I expected to be experiencing right now. And then after that, that's not the last time I had an experience like that. I've had it after a really heavy breakup, sort of not like a bad breakup, but the end of a relationship where, okay, now suddenly I'm stuck with me again after I'd already like lost, I guess, the individual side of self to, a partner, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing to some degree, but because partnerships, your mind's sort of unified to some degree. Even if you're apart, you're still together, right? But we went our separate ways, and it was a very, like amicable breakup for the better, because we had different paths and goals in life, and it was not like a thing of arguing or fighting. It was just, I think we need to go our separate ways, and that was her telling me that, and that was fine. I was like, the ego will fight it. We sort of went the back and forth and everything, and yeah, it was not happy, but it was for the best. And I think we handled it as best as we could at the time. There wasn't like a big fight or anything. But the reaction that I had to that was that I'd stayed up all night, but trying to get to sleep that night as well, I had another one of those kind of experiences, like the one I described a little bit ago with the like the hypnagogic kind of state. Except in that one, it was so strange. Laying there for like 2 hours, just having that kind of like almost like the sense of self and individuality on overdrive just ramped up so hard that I can't sleep and I'm going into the subconscious. That was it was a little bit less overwhelming at that point, and then it was filled with a lot of weird little realizations and things, and that same sense of kind of like information download or data download or whatever, like the connection to some kind of higher being or whatever you want to call it, and just all this stuff coming in and hitting me at once. And
Did
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Did you have questions before going in, right? Were you like, okay, I'm going to do this DMT and I want an answer? Or were you just open-minded, being like, whatever happens, happens?
I think at that point, I'd already gone into like the mushrooms and acid with that kind of mindset, and it never really worked out for me. I never got the answers I was looking for. I got completely different answers. But with that specifically, it was more just a curiosity thing. Like, not really, oh, I want the answers. It was just I'd heard about it, and I'd seen what people had been saying about it, and I was like, I got to try this thing, right?
I don't know. I like to ask that question because a lot of I don't know. I don't know why it interests me. I like
Well, you
to.
know, there are times that I've taken hallucinogenics with the idea that this is going to be dusting and cleaning. I'm going to get rid of all the spooks and, hit it with purpose. And I got the controlled environment and I got the trip sitter and I got everything. Yeah, I like the ones that hit you upside the head while you're, kind of fartling around in the dark in the neighborhood or something. I
I
don't.
mean, I find all that extra shit just shit, right? It's just dressing.
Yeah,
It really
it's
means fuck
it's like
all. It
rearranging the
does.
shavings in your little nest. Oh,
I mean, I get
I'm gonna
that.
put on some Enya. Oh yeah, do it.
Well, to be fair though, putting on if you take a heroic dose of mushrooms and put on Roseland, what's it called? Oh God, why am I blanking on the name? But live in the Roseland Theater at Portishead. You know what I mean? That whole album. Yeah,
Honey, I've been
it'll take
told
you
that
on a
my
fucking
music.
trip
I've
every time.
been told that my music sounds a little bit like Portishead, so I can kind of relate. I really like to take it out there to 1960s German modular synth artists like Teichen and Schnackstücke. Let's really pound it.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and I scare people. They
Mm.
they don't like tripping with me, but
No, 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 no. You
yeah.
can note to self: don't trip with
Yeah, don't
Melwell.
don't trip with Melwell
No, no,
because
no.
he likes to keep the gators fed. But but this thing about what you're talking about kind of I always felt like a trip was a departure from the regular, and that by and I have had plenty of conditioned trips that are watched over, and somebody hands you a wonderful book, and you dissolve for hours um, and so forth. But man, the ones that just hit you upside the head. If you have a minute for an anecdote, I'll try to tell you a condensed version of that psychedelic trip I'm describing that had that passage in it, like from the monad to the totally jaded outer rims of the spill. Okay. Um, I worked as a cook in a late night popular place in Eugene, Oregon. And I could tell when somebody would come in and were tripping because I would get a contact high, even though I was back in the kitchen. It was kind of small. There was a great jukebox. There were a lot of people. This was in the early 80s. And so somebody came in and they must have been tripping balls because, man, I was seeing rainbow hazes around everything. And so I found out it was one of my coworkers, someone I used to like to argue with. He was going to the architecture school there. So I would always approach it from the artist end, and he would always approach it from the science end, and we would bark. And I thought, oh, great, what a wonderful opportunity to try to win him over to my side of the, way of looking at the world. And I should have known the dragon on the acid that I'd been doing was actually on the whole sheet. But on this stuff, this red dragon that he had, it was on each individual tab. But I thought I needed to, catch up with him because, I was a deliberate acid doer and this was his first time. Well, we went to my house, and my house was just starting to wake up. I lived in a cooperative household. So all the students were waking up and making their breakfast and stuff. And, we're tripping balls in the living room. And somebody built us a fire because I couldn't have done it. But the guy, and I don't even remember his name, at some point, it was fairly early on, he picks up a poker and is poking around with the flames. That poker turns into a sword. And he turns into an angel. And he said, look, I got something I got to tell you. And I gave you that acid because I wanted you to be receptive. But look, you got to know. And he laid all this stuff out. and it was the most shocking stuff I had ever seen. And a lot of it, I was going through this whole thing of waiting for the world to end. I'd read enough science fiction. I'd been watching the beginnings of climate change and freaking out and all this kind of stuff. And so I was being told I was right, and that some people were going to make it, right? But some people weren't. And, of course, I got the parade of people that weren't going to make it and the tears and all this stuff. Of course, my roommates by this time were really concerned about me. That guy had taken off about the second time I fell down the stairs. So by this time, I had somebody following me around. I was going through Greek myths. I was going through Earth as a individual god, like a Titan, like Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. Oh, we're in that lineup. Okay, so and finding out that there was fratricide involved with the asteroid belt, all these sort of big topics. Uh, but when I came out, when I was starting, when the acid started to wear off, I was still being followed, but I thought I was going to come out of it with some information. I thought I was coming out of it with some graphics that were going to help change everybody and turn them around. And I got jolted out before I could really remember what it looked like and what it said. But I had no plan, going into that trip other than, sort of winning a sharks in the jet argument with the scientists, while he was tripping, thinking I was going to take advantage of him because I knew the territory and what happened to me. But did I get, blasted into territory I was totally unfamiliar with? But, I did spend the majority of the rest of my life trying to understand all those symbols and why I got that particular download. In other words, I'm still trying to parse the packets. But, it's led to reading a lot of Carl Jung, listening to Terence McKenna, Susan Jacobson, people who talk about language and vision and where its source is, religion. Michael mentioned that religious texts are the most powerful because they're totally pinging our longing for unity within ourselves. So you start reading about myths like the androgyne or the androgyne, depending on how you talk about it, which is the original meaning of androgyny, not just a really good, hot-looking woman in a tux. So, anyway, that's longer than I intended.
No, man. So every single time that I've done a trip, my usual intent is either, all right, I'm going to go and draw some cool shit, or, all right, I'm going to go and make some cool music. And it just never ends up happening. Actually, though, there is one piece of music that I did while on mescaline, of all things. It wasn't really a high dose, but it was the only psychedelic that I've actually managed to sit down and make something. Like, I was working on a project and I did a bit of salvia, and like it was like the book of my life. All these like was like unfurling, and I'd met the salvia lady, and she pretty much told me like, I know the salvia lady is a bit of a meme concept, but I'm not sure I was even aware of her at the point. But she told me like, you're doing well, just keep doing what you're doing, but if you keep messing with me, I will bite. So never touched salvia again after that. Pretty much.
One time I had the redheaded lady in a green silk outfit with a spinning sword come down from a chariot and said, "All right, I have had enough." Shit. And it was just a dream. I wasn't tripping. It was just a dream, but it woke me the fuck up. And I think about, well, redheads, where do I go? And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go there. because all these symbols just all reach to the same sort of rapturous place. And yeah, you talk about wanting to create music and wanting to, that's the metaverse. What we have in our heads, the visions that we see, we're looking for tools to try to share that. Because, you post that link, I will click on it because I'm curious about you. And I'm curious, I want to hear the music that you created. I want to share. I want to receive the share. And that's what the metaverse is. All this squabbling over this other stuff is just bullshit.
I feel that. I'll DM you this piece that I made when I was on the mess one. But yeah, the imagery side of it's interesting. I always tend to get gestures. And the message that I get is I've had a big joke played on me, right? Like when the first time I did acid, and I was like, oh my God, acid actually isn't real. I've just had a massive cosmic joke played on me. And every time after that, it was always still the same thing. Meanwhile, I'm tripping balls, fucking thinking the universe is breaking down and seeing all these colors flying around. But I'm sitting there like, no, this shit isn't real. It's just a big joke. Just a scam to get my money. Like, oh man. I don't know why it always hit me like that. But the first time I did acid as well, like one of the realizations I had was that a lot of the things that I believed in were actually kind of bullshit. And I don't mean like necessarily religious things, but I used to have this idea, like I was still pretty young at the time, but I was caught up with this community of people that were talking about stuff called like otherkin, where they believed that they were like reincarnated souls of like, some ancient, I don't know, elves of some sort. And so, well, like an Unukai, whatever you want to call them. So I was caught up in that. And I dead ass believed this stuff so hard because I was still like this teenager, and this was like the world view that I had. It was a delusion, but it was like sort of embedded into like my conscious perspective and the way I related to reality. When I took acid, it just broke that right down and just brought me right face to face with reality. Actually, no, this is bullshit. It was the most sobering experience in a way because it brought me out of that delusion and brought me face to face with, okay, so if none of that is real, what do I have? Like, what am I going to do? And,
It's when
that's a beautiful thing.
When you start thinking of the word kin, right? And you said other kin. And so what you're longing for is this sense of belonging and the secret handshake and the passwords and this sense that there's a subtext that is either revealed or not revealed. I mean, I would love to have access to subtext at all times, but it's very distracting. But your sense of wanting to belong, I mean, geez, I can't think of any other time being alive where I felt more alienated from everything that was going on around me, my family, or say what other kids like my age were interested in. I sprained a muscle trying to be different, and trying to be kind of weird. It was just my way. So I'm glad that this idea of the otherkin didn't spring up when I was a teenager. We just dove into acid rock and progressive rock and scanned the albums for code words and the album art. That's pretty much all we had at the time. But when I look at phenomena like Slender Man and other kinds of phenomena that are part of our collective buy-in, um, I think it's really interesting because I do know that we could probably use marshal those energies in a way, but it would always be with a wink and a nod, right? That it is shit, that it is bullshit.
Yeah, so we tend to call those sort of things ARGs these days, or at least those of us that are a bit more into it or in the know. But like, I think about kids specifically who don't really know better, and the sort of things that are going around these days. I mean, it's not so much what's going around, so much as the accessibility and how easy it is to fall into them. And I'm not going to get into my controversial opinion on this because no one wants to hear it.
No, but I
But I
want to hear,
think
and I want to hear what AIG is the acronym for.
ARG is the acronym for Alternate Reality Game, which means
Oh.
you're playing a game with an alternate reality concept by engaging with it and sort of buying into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind
Right.
of like we play
We
this
used to call
creativity
that,
thing.
yeah, we used to call that mutually ordered environments, just part of the consensus. And
Yeah.
when we're dealing with chat, we didn't even have audio. You're dealing with words and setting up your scenario from the sender to the receiver based on an understanding of acceptance of this library that you're going to use. And of course, when you're working with somebody with different languages or language sets, like even Canadians, um, it's different, and so you can run afoul sometimes, but they're still mutually ordered role play environment, a predictable thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, the thing I suppose that separates the ARG concept, I don't know if it separates it or actually ties it in closer, but a little bit of both maybe. It's very fabricated and like usually it's one platform or one sort of thing that's telling a specific story. And it'll be things so like the QAnon thing, right? That's like an ARG because I don't know whether you buy into it or not. Maybe there's something there that's legitimate. Maybe there isn't. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But that's an example of what an ARG kind of is. It creates this platform where people engage and buy into this concept that's kind of like a fiction. It's a telling of reality, and it usually lies in the supernatural to some extent. It's never something like you wouldn't have an ARG about some dude that goes to the shops. It's some dude that goes to the shops, but he gets robbed by not a thief, but a cybernetic ATM machine that's gained AI consciousness, and suddenly, like, he's telling this story about how he knows exactly why it's actually an AI machine that's robbed him, and like
Right.
has evidence and all this and that, and like it's a
So
fictional storytelling.
So is this similar to like the distinction between hard world building and soft world building in like sci-fi, where you're buying in because you cracked the book, right? The author bought in by setting up the situation, like Roger Zelazny. I can't remember what they're called, but there was a world where combustible materials like gunpowder didn't work. They were inert. And so everything was based on that premise. So you had to accept that particular premise of the physics of that world in order to be fully immersed in it. Is that what you mean? But
Yeah, kind of.
it's not really detailed about how the physics work because they're working with different physics and so they're just kind of just sort of ballpark it, kind of like the movie operating systems that you see on screens when you go by in a scene. You look at that, it's like, wait a minute, there's no interface there. That kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of, pretty much. Like, there's usually a good tell, but it's almost always presented in the form of like first-hand experience on a platform like something like Facebook or YouTube or whatever, right? So I
Right,
think
and
that's
so then it gets basically transmitted like a virus at that point.
yeah. So like with the Slender Man stuff, you had Marble Hornets, and that was an awesome little series, right? But as a kid, if you can't tell and you don't know the distinction between those kind of things because you haven't had those experiences yet, where you get caught up in them and you're like, oh no, this is real. And, then you realize, oh wait, I'm an idiot. I fell for it. I fell for it again, whatever. Then, for kids, that's not necessarily a great thing, but they also kind of need to experience it. Things like Marble Hornets, where they're kind of like these little short horror stories that are presented in that way. offer that fantasy aspect without involving them individually too much. The real risk comes when it starts to involve the person in a cult-like way. And I think we don't realize it yet, but a lot of mental health issues and the snowballing of echo chambers and the issue of self-identity, insofar as the way that we relate to ourselves and our image of self and our inability to accept ourselves directly for who we are physically in this present moment, again, as we are, and creating these mental distinctions is largely sort of tied into that, I think. I could be entirely wrong, and I don't want to share that opinion based on false understandings, but I do know that given my experience with the otherkin stuff and the desire for a sense of belonging when I was younger and the nature of how those sort of ARG kind of things work, and then the realization of actually that was just illusion, and I
AIG AIG is the insurance company. I think. Are you talking about AGI, Artificial
no,
General
no,
Intelligence?
no. ARG is in alternate reality game, right?
I think he just says
Ah,
AR because he's from
Yeah, sorry.
Australia. It's an R, not an I.
Yeah.
fucking Canadians and see, this is where our language breaks down.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's so
You've got
funny.
a
Are
slightly
you talking?
different manual. You've got a slightly different operating
Isn't
system.
that
That's
hilarious?
EPM, not
Uh,
CPM.
What the hell,
I
Nate?
yeah,
Sorry, I have to.
I totally had to take like two ear gabs again and be like AR, ARG. I was like, oh AI, oh AR. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I heard of the AMG being a fast Mercedes Benz.
Ew, and here comes the stranger in a fast car.
So was that augmented reality game? Was that what you said? Or
alternate.
artificial? Oh,
Alternate.
okay.
But I'm talking about pretty much. Did you guys ever watch Marble Hornets?
No,
Or
no, I missed that one.
I'm trying to think of something that would be relevant. Hey,
Like
I don't
Extasens,
know.
the movie Extasens.
Oh yeah, now, yeah, you're talking.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm asking Peter. Peter, did you? Well, yes, I obviously did. That movie is amazing. I mean, come on, right? That movie's it's like in the top 5 for me.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, my favorite movie, real quick, is also like science fictiony. Of course, it's Until the End of the World, as well. That deals with what we're dealing with right now. Literally, he's the only one that got it right as a filmmaker so far for the future. You know what I mean? Like that movie. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that.
I
But
got one of my favorite songs to cover from that movie, "Calling Angels." Do you know that one?
yes,
Uh-huh.
oh yes.
Yes.
I
Mary
have to see
plays
that. I'm a big fan. Like I said, #1 fan of that film. So have all of the, you know what I mean, the soundtrack. I've got the album on, vinyl. Luckily, they just released the DVD a couple of years ago, right? Because before that, all we had was a VHS copy. So, yeah, it was anyway. But go. Sorry, I just want to say real quick. I'm going to step out. It has been absolutely wonderful. This morning conversation this morning, and Peter, I'm so glad I took time to stop and like check out your art and everything. Thank you, Michael, for doing that.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy because Peter's also totally single, right, Peter? No, I'm just joking.
no, that's impossible. No, that doesn't exist online. No
Yeah.
one's single online. I swear to God, no
Oh.
one is here.
Wow.
What? Apart from like me, but like no one else.
Yeah, I think well, we have to talk about it because I know I'm taken. I know Casey's taken. The assigned, I know you're like a perpetual free agent, right? No, I'm just joking. Maybe. I don't know.
And I'm too old for anyone to care.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Well, they'd have to be really, really good at remote viewing and teleporting, and then what is that? ARG?
I like it. It's AIG could be like the Judge Dredd, Sandra Bullock, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh no! He is not the law. I read those books. He is not the fucking law.
I am the law. Yo, he had a
Oh,
crazy
that was
voice in that
just
movie,
so
though.
awful.
Yo, whoever tuned that voice, whoever edited that audio, did an amazing job on his voice. It was nuts.
Sound design.
I didn't know
Sound design.
they had systems that could form consonants out of nothing.
Consonants out of nothing.
All right, guys. I'm going to continue editing these videos on my side. What are you guys up to today?
I'm still taking a break from the board of directors that I'm working from, who had a fight on Discord. I'm waiting for them to duke it out, and then I'll dip in Monday. So I'm on my own recognizance.
What about you, Danny?
Danny's just been hanging out. Maybe Danny's sleeping. He came in here. Maybe he's taking a nap. Maybe he's driving. Who knows?
He could be listening with his earbuds surreptitiously too.
I mean, I do this too. I mean, if I sometimes have to work, and like tomorrow, I'll be listening, but won't be participating, right? Because I'll be busy. But I do like to listen though. But anyway, all right, Michael. I'm gonna see you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye.
All
Ann.
right.
Okay. All right. Bye, Peter. Bye. Nice meeting you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Anne. Nice meeting you.
All right, guys. I'm staring at. I have. How many labs are there? There are 20 labs. Maybe approximately 9 steps per lab. So 20 times 9 is what? $1.80? So that's how many videos I have to get done this month. You guys have any major plans for this month?
Just tell
Yeah,
me the world.
headed back east. Headed over to Washington, D.C. area, DMV. Try and spend some time over there investigating the market over there. Getting together with some guys who have some cool strains that they're trying to develop and crossbreed with some cool strains from West Coast. So it's going to be an interesting month.
Sounds like you're talking about cross-pollination.
Yeah, we're going to breed some babies. We're going to try and create some bomb-ass F1, some crazy phenomes. We're looking to go with, there's a strain out called Jealousy from Burner Cookies. And we're trying to cross it with a blueberry. Well, I call it a blueberry asshole. It smells like came out of a blueberry's asshole. It's amazing. Aromatic blueberry.
It sounds like antioxidants to me.
Oh man, amazing. So hopefully they'll be able to breed these two strains together and come up with a cool flavor.
That seems worth doing.
Yeah, just basically get to walk around their setups, and check out their stores. And I mean, I don't really do anything but give them some seeds. You know what I'm saying? It's like they take it all on their journey for the long haul, as far as germination and doing the real hard work. You know what I'm saying?
So we could call it Journey, Gerney.
Hell yeah.
The Germany. I like it. Well, I'm sure I'm sure I'll see you guys around today. I like starting my day off like this. I find a lot because I see the cross pollination of talent and what can happen. Like God knows what will happen with Dan and Peter, or even Ann and Peter, right? But even just like exploring what that might be, I think is a win enough. Because when the time's right, things just happen.
That is the way it happens. Everything happens in its own perfect way. I think we mess it up, right? We try to force shit.
We never know how bad luck keeps us from even worse luck.
Oh,
Damn,
yeah,
that
that's
was
a good
good.
one. I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds Jewish somehow.
Maybe it's based and it's probability based, right? You know, there's a decision matrix of decision and outcome, and sometimes a good decision can lead to a bad outcome, and sometimes a bad decision can lead to a good outcome. And so, in a world like that, how much can we really know to be certain? You know, it's all a bunch of guesses that we attach multisyllabic language to make ourselves feel certain.
Well, I got to roll too, but I like starting the day this way too for the same reason, because it's a wonderful garden. All right.
The garden of live flowers.
The garden of life and the garden of cross pollination and beautiful compositions made individually and collaboratively, coming together. All of that good stuff. Bye, guys.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Sandra.
Did I scare
Yeah,
her
we were just,
away? Did I scare her? Oh, no.
no, it's so funny. When you came, we were talking about closing this down.
Oh, darn. I'm always closing these things down. That's okay. If you got stuff to do.
Oh man. Well, I would love to listen in to you guys. But yeah, Danny, I'm glad you were able to become co-host. It's working. You know, you would give Mr. Raj a run for his money for best eyebrows on Twitter Spaces. All right, guys, I'm gonna bounce out and stare at micropixels. It's
Blessings, brother.
yeah, man. It's
Good luck on
things
the
are happening.
186.
How long
You'll
were you
knock out
guys
10
What
today,
time did
man.
you guys start today? My God.
Oh, early, 7-ish,
Oh,
7,
great.
8.
My
No, it's
alarm.
just I'm starting to wake up a bit earlier, right? So I can fit more things into my day, I guess. I want to be able to wake up early enough that I can fit in a nap and it doesn't disrupt my day.
I see. Okay.
That's what it is, right?
Cool.
I want to be able to have a good nap and not be so late that I just like, you know, when you nap and then you drowse yourself out of the rest of the day, you're like, crap, I can't do anything.
That is why I think
Freaking-
Europe has been, way superior. They send their families home to get to see it.
Yeah, the productivity scores, right? You know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I get it.
All right. Have a
Well, all
good
right, man.
day.
Blessings, y'all. Have a good one.
Speak, Lauren.
All right, take care.
Good morning,
Adios.
Sandra. Blessings.
You
I'll
too.